Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Pirate. After punching the redhead, I went crazy. Chapter 1. You crazy author. In the Chinese Empire, in an urban village in Tianzhou City, Lu Ang, who wanted to watch 2 episodes of One Piece during the weekend, suddenly started to curse. In the computer interface in front of him, Ace was punched through the body by a kainu. Seeing this scene, his whole body was about to explode. Because Ace is one of his favorite characters, he thought that Luffy and Whitebeard had successfully rescued him during the war. Lu Ang was about to open a bottle of 1982 beer to celebrate, but unexpectedly the plot suddenly changed. A kainu actually punched Ace. I'm using this again to catch eyeballs and earn tears. So and so, just wait, Lousy will send you a razor blade today. With full anger, Lu Ang slammed the table. At this moment, a chuckle suddenly sounded in the void. Haha, since you are so annoyed, then I will give you a chance to travel through the world of One Piece and let you change everything. What the hell? While Lu Ang was still confused, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Then the whole person seemed to have traveled through time and space, as countless suns, moons, stars, and countless bizarre scenes passed crazily before his eyes. But when he came back to his senses, he had appeared in a beautiful small village. There are neatly arranged cabins here, endless green fields, lush jungles, and beautiful green mountains and green waters. When the breeze blows, there is an extremely comfortable feeling. Ding! System. Congratulations to host for coming to the world of One Piece. There is no gorgeous magic here, only the coolest devil fruit, the most powerful domineering and the sharpest swordsmanship. Please use your power to defeat everyone you encounter. Enemies, P.S. Every time you hit someone, you can gain his power. Hearing this, Lu Ang couldn't help but look confused. Did I travel to the world of One Piece? Looking at the scenery in front of him and looking at the huge windmill in the village, he recognized it immediately as he was familiar with One Piece. Windmill Village. I really traveled through time. Looking at his own hands and then at the workers busy carrying fresh fish in front of him, Lu Ang was dumbfounded. At this moment, a tall guy suddenly walked up behind Lu Ang and kicked him to the ground. Nah, my ass. Lu Ang was kicked like a dog and scratched the ground. He stood up angrily and turned around, only to find a burly bald man wearing a vest. The bald man roared angrily. Lousy gave you food and drink not to let you be lazy here. If you don't want to do it, get out of here, Lousy. Listening to the bald man's roar, a series of memories poured into Lu Ang's head at this moment. The person he traveled through time was also named Lu Ang, but he had a strange last name, Aruba. The full name is Aruba Lu Ang. He was an orphan since he was a child, and he could only grow up eating the food of hundreds of families. The bald man in front of him is the boss of the ship. His name is Lei Ba, and he is also the person who hired him, but he is also an extremely stingy and mean person. Seeing that he was a little lazy, he kicked himself hard. This is simply a great insult to Lu Ang, who has a bad temper. My uncle can bear it, but my aunt can't. If you don't care about life and death, do it if you don't accept it. How could Lu Ang, who had been fighting since childhood, give this bald man a chance to quarrel? Without saying a word, he rushed forward and punched Lei Ba to the ground. Ding! Congratulations to host for punching the ship boss Lei Ba and gaining the ship boss's strength +3. Lu Ang didn't know what strength plus third generation meant, but he found that at this moment, he seemed to have a lot of strength suddenly emerging. Without saying a word, he punched Lei Ba again. The power of this second punch was many times stronger than the first punch, and Lei Bagan was immediately stunned. Then Lu Ang took advantage of his fighting skills and furiously greeted Lei Ba's head. Not long after, Lei Ba was kicked by him and passed out. Does it mean that if you defeat someone, you can gain the other person's power? Just when Lu Ang was confused, a blood-red ship that could be called a giant slowly docked. Looking at the flag of the blood-red ship, Lu Ang's eyes widened instantly. Isn't this the ship of the red-haired pirates? Just as he was shocked, a group of young and familiar faces walked down the wooden ladder of the ship. Ha ha ha, I'm so lucky today, I actually killed a Poseidon. The boss is so charming that even Poseidons want to come over and worship him for his heroic appearance. What the hell, it's obviously Lousy who is so handsome, but some Poseidon wants to come over and admire my handsome face. Amidst a group of chatter and slapstick sounds, Luang saw one of the most powerful men in One Piece walking towards him with a smile. Looking at the face with red hair and dazzling scars, Luang's breathing began to quicken. Red hair, this guy is red hair. If I can kill him, can I also get his power? He thought of the previous scene of the Bandit King knocking the redhead to the ground, and his whole heart started to beat wildly. Looking at the people who turned the corner and walked out towards Windmill Village, Luang clenched his fists with a trace of excitement and entanglement on his face. To do it or not to do it? If you do it, if you don't succeed, will you be killed? Countless thoughts and possible images flashed crazily through his mind. He remembered the character positioning that Moutian gave to this character when he was drawing. This guy is an informal and extremely generous person. As long as it is not a matter of principle, he will not take action casually. For example, point a gun at his head. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the previous Bandit King to walk out of the tavern with such arrogance after beating the red hair. Give it a try, the bicycle will turn into a motorcycle, let's do it. After thinking for a long time, Luang finally decided to give it a try. Then, he followed him calmly. The tavern in Windmill Village is neither big nor small. It was opened by a young woman named Maginot. Following behind the red-haired people, Luang walked in unhurriedly. At this time, the red-haired man was sitting at the bar, watching Maginot pour him a large glass of wine, and immediately drank it in one gulp without hesitation. Cool. The redhead put the wine glass on the bar and let out a happy sound. Luang calmly came to the red-haired man. He said to the fair-skinned, young and beautiful Makino, "Bring me a glass of wine. It's still so comfortable in a tavern. Hey, it's true that I would rather drink the wine poured by the landlady. Oh my, what are you thinking about every day?" At this time, the red-haired man was chatting with several crew members and did not notice Luang's movements at all. The moment the red-haired man picked up the wine that Maginot refilled for him, Luang's eyes suddenly flashed. He gritted his teeth and without saying a word, he stretched out his hand and hit the red-haired man on the arm. After punching him, Luang shouted, "Oh, brother, your shoulders are so hard." At the same time, a voice came from his head that made him feel extremely happy. Ding! Congratulations on defeating Shanks, you have gained Strength plus 300, SSS Conquerors Hockey plus 1, SSS Knowledge and Knowledge Hockey plus 1, SSS Armed Hockey plus 1, SSS Physical Skills plus 1, SSS Swordsmanship plus 1. As the sound of the system sounded, Luang also felt an unprecedented power surge up all over his body. At this second, he suddenly found that all the words and deeds around him had become extremely clear. Even their actions in the next second can be easily predicted. In addition, he also found that his knowledge of swords had reached an incredible level. At this moment, Red Hair and all the crew members around him were stunned. Especially the red-haired one, who looked at Luang sharply. It's such a deep breath, I actually feel like I can't see through him. The red hair showed a rare look of dignity. After he and Luang looked at each other for about a second, he held his forehead and laughed loudly. I am a man, how can a man not be tough? Luang was also infected by Shank's open-mindedness. If he had been touched like this by a stranger, he would have immediately turned around and knocked him down. Originally he wanted to turn around and leave, but thinking about the huge power he had gained through the other person's body, Luang felt that he should have a few words with the other person, otherwise it would be a bit uninteresting. I'm Luang, nice to meet you. Shanks was stunned for a moment, then stretched out his hand to hold Luang. Shanks, nice to meet you. After saying this, Shanks suddenly grabbed the wine glass. His face turned red and he burped and said, come on, let's have a drink for our acquaintance. Before Luang could say anything, Shanks directly picked up the wine glass and took a big gulp of it. Luang was also confused by Shanks' action at this time. Is this guy so bold? He found that Shanks seemed to be more chic and happier than he had imagined. Okay, let's drink to our acquaintance. Luang picked up the wine glass without saying a word, drank it quickly, and soon drank it down. Seeing that Luang actually followed suit, Shanks looked very excited and clapped happily. Wow, that's great. Luang, you are such a good drinker. You have such a good drinker. Come on, have another drink. Then Luang was filled with another large cup. This is wine, not beer. If I keep pouring it all the way, before he falls over, I will fall over first. Ha ha ha, Lu Ang, this is a toast. We are all men who can hold our breath. I'll do it first. Before Lu Ang could say anything, Shanks took another big gulp. Nima, that's beer for you, and red wine for me. Lu Ang secretly wiped his sweat, then gritted his teeth and said to Maginot beside him, change it to the same beer as theirs. The beautiful landlady was stunned for a moment, then smiled sweetly, of course. At this moment, the door of the tavern was kicked hard. Under everyone's surprised gazes, a group of gangster-like men walked into the tavern with all kinds of swords. Lu Ang immediately narrowed his eyes when he saw the wretched uncle at the head. He recognized this guy right away. It is the man who is said to have punched the 4 emperors Shanks and stepped on One Piece Luffy. He is nicknamed the Bandit King by countless fans, Hikuma. Hakong glanced at the entire audience with a disdainful look on his face, and then walked slowly to the bar counter of Maginot with a pace that he didn't recognize. Maginot took a step back in fear and said, what are you going to do? Sun Bear glanced at Maginot's beautiful face and figure with evil eyes, and then said with an evil smile, don't worry, we are not here to rob, you just need to sell us 10 barrels of wine. Maginot patted her chest and breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that she was here to buy wine. But at this moment, she suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but look grim. But I don't have that much wine here anymore. I'm afraid I can only sell you 3 barrels because my wine has been sold to my customers. What? After the Bandit King Rixiong heard this, he immediately became furious and punched the bar counter. Lousy came here to buy wine from you to give you face. You actually told me that there were only 3 barrels of wine. You don't give me the face of the Bandit King. Shanks saw this and said, hey, brother, don't be like this, her wine was bought by us, it's pointless for you to vent your anger on a girl. Hearing this, the Bandit King was so angry that he immediately picked up the wine glass and threw it at Shanks. HMPH, this is a warning to you. If you keep talking nonsense with me, the Bandit King, next time Lousy won't just throw drinks at you. Sun Bear spat fiercely on Shanks, as if he was about to draw his sword and kill him if he disagreed with him. At this time, Shanks and the red-haired One Piece members around him were stunned for a second and then burst into laughter. Boss, you are really in a sorry state. Yeah, as a big pirate, you were actually confused by the bandit, ha 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 ha, it's so funny. Shanks was not angry after being teased by his companion, but laughed loudly and said, ha ha, it's really embarrassing this time. Lu Ang, who is very familiar with the plot of One Piece, naturally knows that this is not because Shanks is afraid of Sun Bear, nor is it because Shanks is stupid. But his structure and vision are extremely tall. In his eyes, Bandit King Rixiong is just a little ant. As a giant dragon, he can crush thousands of these ants to death with just one kick. With his strength and status, he doesn't even bother to get angry with such people. In other words, the Bandit King didn't even have the qualifications to make him emotional. But the red hair could bear it, but Lu Ang couldn't. From the moment Hong didn't care and cheered with him with a smile, he had already regarded the red hair as a friend. Even if it wasn't for this acquaintance and friendship, just for the power given to him by the red hair, he couldn't just sit idly by. Before the Bandit King Rixiong could continue to show off, Lu Ang took action without saying a word. As fast as lightning, he grabbed Sun Shang's extremely wretched face, and then pressed it hard towards the ground. Boom! There was a loud noise, and the Bandit King Rixiong was directly by Lu Ang with one hand and fell to the ground. Ding! Congratulations on defeating the Bandit King Rixiong, your strength is +10. At the same time as the system's voice sounded, the other bandits roared, drew their swords, and rushed towards Lu Ang. When Shanks saw this, he quickly said, help him. Need not, Lu Ang replied, then drew out the sword of Bandit King Rixiong and swung it out. Wind breath. With a low shout, a sharp gust of wind suddenly flew from under his sword. In the blink of an eye, nearly 20 bandits screamed and were swept away by the strong wind. Looking at the bandit lying on the ground, Lu Ang couldn't help but feel a thump in his heart before he could even sigh about his awesome swordsmanship. Oh shit, why did you accidentally use the red-haired sword move? He forgot that the swordsmanship he just acquired was obtained from the red hair, and he couldn't help but feel ashamed for a moment. No, I have to think of a way to fool him. A fat man eating chicken legs and wearing sunglasses suddenly said, Boss, the swordsmanship Luang used just now seems to be exactly the same as yours. Shanks also looked at Luang solemnly at this time, and slowly said, Brother Lu, where did you learn this move? Looking at Shanks' serious face and the suspicious faces of the red-haired pirates around him, Luang touched his chin. After a moment, he said, Brother, if I told you that I learned this sword move in a dream, would you believe it? What I learned in my dream? Shanks was confused. Because this trick was created by him, he has not used it a few times until now. I only use it occasionally when dueling with Hawkeye. How could it become a dream move and be learned by the young man in front of me? Luang said, I know this is a bit outrageous, but think about it, this is the first time we have met, how could I have the chance to secretly learn your swordsmanship? Moreover, even if it is secretly learned, how could I learn it so well? So perfect. Hearing this, Shanks couldn't help but fell silent. Although it feels a bit outrageous, Luang's words are not unreasonable. Even the most talented Hawkeye would not be able to learn his own sword moves after seeing them a few times. Not to mention the young man in front of me who didn't even know whether he knew how to swordsmanship or what level of swordsmanship he had reached when we met him for the first time. Ha, brother, I misunderstood you, come on, I'll punish myself with 3 cups of wine. After clearing his mind, Shanks no longer hesitated, and without saying a word, he let himself be filled with Maginot, and then drank it all in one gulp. After pouring 3 large cups into his stomach, Shanks burped with satisfaction on his face. Maginot's wine is still delicious, ha. Then Luang continued to drink with Shanks for a few more rounds, until he vomited several times before leaving the tavern with satisfaction. Even if you owe him a favor, let's repay him if you have the opportunity in the future. Luang secretly made a decision in his heart. He is a person who has a clear sense of grudges and grudges. If someone is kind to him, he will repay him with a drop of kindness and a spring of kindness. Whoever has a grudge against you should take revenge as necessary and never spend the night. After returning to his rental house, Luang fell asleep directly. That night, he slept particularly soundly. Early the next morning, his door was kicked in dozens of times. Bang bang bang. The violent sound completely woke Luang up from his sweet dream. He was already very angry when he got up, so how could he be nice to others, so he opened the door without saying a word. At the moment of gate of opening, he was dumbfounded. Because the person who woke him up was none other than his landlord, Patna. In the memory of the owner of the body he obtained, this was an extremely fat and sarcastic middle-aged woman. Patna was wearing an extremely exaggerated blue dress. She put her hands on her hips and yelled at Luang with a stern face, Today is the last day of rent. If you can't pay the rent again, get out of here tonight. After saying that, Patna immediately left Luang's eyes with her nostrils snorting and shaking her butt that was comparable to an elephant. Hey, people have to bow their heads when they are under the eaves. Luang looked helpless. Even though he had one PIECE's top-notch 4 emperors fighting power at this moment, he still couldn't afford a Pele to pay the rent. By the way, I can go catch pirates and bandits. At this moment, an idea suddenly flashed in Luang's mind, and he punched his palm fiercely. Now he can almost walk sideways in the entire world of One Piece, and there is no pirate he dares to mess with. Even the 3 marine generals, he can completely ignore them. Isn't it easy to catch a few small pirates in exchange for some money? After thinking of ways to make money, Luang immediately closed the door and walked towards the mountains without saying a word. Compared to pirates, there are obviously more bandits in Windmill Village. King of bandits, I'm here to play with you. Luang grinned and walked quickly towards the forest. It didn't take long for him to find a lair of these bandits at the foot of the mountain. At this time, the bandit king Rixiong just walked out. His head was covered with a bandage, and his entire face was as black as coal. Obviously, Luang's blow last night caused him a lot of trauma. At this moment, a bandit with a sly eyebrow suddenly rushed in front of Rixiong and said respectfully to him, Boss, I have found out where that kid lives. Should we go and kill him? Sun Shang's eyes widened, and he grabbed the subordinate's collar with a fierce look on his face, Are you sure? The bandit swallowed his saliva, nodded and said, Yes, sure, I followed him there with my own eyes. At this time, he saw Rixiong grinning. He patted the subordinate's chest and said with a smile, Hee hee, not bad, you did a good job. When you come back this time, I will promote you to a cadre. At this moment, Luang walked out with a smile. No need, you won't be able to come back after you go out this time. The moment they saw Luang, all the bandits immediately changed their expressions as if they had seen a ghost, and hurriedly shrank behind the bandit king Rixiong. Rixiong, who originally wanted to take revenge, couldn't help but swallow hard when he saw Luang. His hands and feet were trembling and said, "You, don't mess around, I tell you, Marine and I are stuck. Garp is an old acquaintance, if you attack me, he won't let you go." Luang. After hearing what Rixiong said, Luang almost laughed out loud. Is this guy sure his IQ is online? Do you know Marine Garp? It's a good thing that Garp didn't arrest you and lock you up when he saw you. He's still an old acquaintance of you. You really lie without drafting. Luang shook his head helplessly and said, "Okay, don't waste your efforts. I can kill you once, and I can kill you a second time. If you don't want to suffer physical pain, then come to the world with me." Department of Government. Hearing this, Sun Shang and his subordinates couldn't help but widen their eyes and shook their heads violently. Everyone knows that once you enter Marine's prison, you have no way out, and there is almost no chance of coming back. How could they, who were used to the lawlessness in Windmill Village, endure such a life? Their heads immediately shook like a rattle. Oh, it seems you like to have hard love. In that case. Luang's expression turned cold, then his eyes narrowed, and Conqueror's domineering power was suddenly released. As Conqueror's domineering sweep passed by, all the bandits turned their eyes white and fell down without saying a word. I thought they were so tough, but it turns out they are all a bunch of cowards. Seeing all these people fall down, Luang couldn't help but show a trace of disdain. He knows the setting of Conqueror's hockey. If a person who is not determined enough encounters hockey, he will be stunned by hockey immediately. And if you are a strong-willed person, you will not fall down so easily. Seeing that these bandits were all killed instantly, Luang knew that there must not be any tough guys among them. I lost such a big man for nothing. Luang complained while finding the rope from the bandit cave. He quickly picked up all these misbehaviors, and then dragged them all the way towards the nearest world government department. Among these people, the most valuable one is the Mountain King Rixiong. Others may only be able to change a small amount of money. But Luang doesn't care, as long as he can exchange for some small money. He didn't want to be kicked out of the rental house by that fat woman, it would be too embarrassing. In any case, he is also the top of the one-piece food chain with the strength of the 4 emperors. Being kicked out by your landlord because you can't pay the rent is really embarrassing. The nearest world government department in Windmill Village is in Shields Town, and its leader Luang is also very familiar with it, that is Menka, known as the Axe God. It's really troublesome. To transport these guys there, we need to rent a boat. Walking to the broad road in the village, Luang scratched his head and seemed to have a headache. By the way, these guys should have their own ships, right? After looking at the extremely vulgar-looking Rixiong with a small beard, Luang touched his chin, walked up to him, and kicked him. Luang controlled the force of this kick extremely well, not kicking the sun bear to death, but just enough to cause him enough pain to wake him up. Ouch! Sun Bear's eyes widened and he screamed. After shouting a few times, he suddenly came back to his senses. After looking around, and then at the ordinary-looking man with a smile in front of him, Sun Shang couldn't help but his expression changed, and his eyes showed fear. He remembered the shadow of being dominated by Luang twice in a row. He swallowed and immediately turned into a flattering face. Hey, this handsome and brave brother, can you give me a face as the Bandit King? Wow! Before he could finish his words, Rixiong was kicked into the sky by Luang. When he landed, his whole body fell into the field. This kick was also controlled just right by Luang, so that this guy could fall half to death without burping directly. Looking at the sun bear who fell onto his back in the field and kept wailing, Luang said disdainfully, "Give you face. What kind of green onion are you? Are you a redhead? You ate the face fruit. Are you done? You really dare to say anything?" Sun Bear. At this moment, Sun Shang drooped his head, looking like tears were streaming down his face, feeling aggrieved and uncomfortable. Because he didn't understand the meaning of the face fruit at all, he only knew that he almost lost half his life after being wasted. Looking at this wretched number 2, second only to Kizaru, Luang said coldly, "Do you have a ship?" In reality, Luang is a person who hates evil as much as he hates hatred and has clear grudges. This bandit king is ugly and wretched, but he actually behaves recklessly and has done all kinds of bad things in this windmill village. For the sake of the bounty, and for the sake of the audience's clear vision, I have to send this product to the world government today. Looking at Luang's eyes that were several times more fierce than his own, Rixiong nodded quickly and said, "Yes, yes." Luang glanced at Rixiong sideways. "Okay, you take me there." Afterwards, he took the limping Sun Bear and slowly walked towards their boat. When he saw what Rixiong called the ship, Luang's face was filled with black lines, and he almost wanted to catch this guy and beat him up again. Because his boat is just a small boat, which can only hold 2 people. If there is one more person, it will become a submarine. Luang glanced at Rixiong. "Is this your boat?" Sun Shang smiled coquettishly. "Yes, yes." Luang sighed deeply. He originally wanted to catch all these bandits in one fell swoop, but he had to give up. Full of helplessness, Luang threw the bandit king onto the boat, then picked up the oar and started paddling in the direction of Shields Town. Since there was no specific map, Luang could only row along according to the general direction given by Rixiong. While paddling, Luang suddenly felt that something was not right about the smell of the sea. The sea, which was originally filled with gusts of sea breeze and with schools of fish and seagulls flying by from time to time, suddenly became extremely calm. It's like the silence before the storm. The silence is oppressive, weird, and scary. Something's wrong. Luang, who had reached the peak of his domineering power, suddenly felt a huge existence approaching crazily on the boat. Is it that guy? Luang, who is familiar with the plot of One Piece, suddenly remembered something. The bandit king in front of me seemed to have been killed by the Poseidon of the offshore king in the end. Are you going to go to sea now and face such a big guy? Luang raised his eyebrows slightly, but there was no fear at all. With his ability to predict the plot and the combat power of the top One Piece, even a mere Poseidon is not in his eyes. Almost 3 seconds later, Luang suddenly pulled out the bandit king's sword. He looked at the sea level in the southwest, and in an instant, he wrapped the saber in his hand with Conqueror's domineering force, and then slashed it towards the sea. The Overlord is angry. With a low roar, the entire saber suddenly burst out with a 10,000-meter sword light, forcibly splitting the sea in front of him with the terrifying momentum of splitting the entire sea, and completely split the sea water into 2 from top to bottom. At this moment of splitting in 2, both Luang and Sun Shang saw a Poseidon with a big bloody mouth being cut into 2 pieces. Obviously, this Poseidon was preparing to launch a devouring attack on the 2 of them just a second ago. It's a pity that Luang, who had reached the peak of his domineering power, couldn't give it a chance to attack, so he killed it with a single domineering sword. Seeing that the sea levels were separated for a long time and then slowly closed, Sun Shang was completely stunned. I actually still want to be an enemy of this man and want to sneak attack on him. Aren't I tired of living like this? Luang seemed very satisfied with the effect of this knife. He could feel that the power of this sword was almost the same as that of Hawkeye. No wonder I can be as good as Hawkeye in swordsmanship, but even with the power of this sword, I'm afraid Hawkeye wouldn't dare to ignore it easily. Looking at the shivering Rixiong beside him, who had 3 souls and 7 souls frightened away 2 souls and 6 souls, Luang couldn't help but grin. After the power of this sword, this guy must be honest. At this moment, Luang suddenly thought of red hair. When he saw red hair, he still had both hands intact. Killing the king of the near sea can save him from this unnecessary disaster, and it can be regarded as unintentionally returning a favor. Sun Shang, who originally wanted to mess up Luang's path, no longer dared to mess up after this blow. Guide Luang honestly. Fortunately, with the red hair's powerful strength, Luang finally arrived at Shields Town after rowing for a full day. If the bandit king hadn't been much weaker than him, it would have taken him several days and nights to row the boat. Luang would have wanted him to do the hard work of rowing. Luang searched the body of the mountain thief king and finally found only 103 Baileys. Well, seeing as how ragged you were in your clothes, that's probably all you need. Luang shook his head, then found a hotel and stayed in the town for one night. He beat Sun Bear no less than 3 times in one night, because this guy really brought out the thunderous snoring. It wasn't until Sun Shang was beaten that he never dared to sleep again, that Luang had a good sleep comfortably. Early the next morning, while asking passers-by, he dragged Hijin to the Marine branch in Shields Town. This place also accepts criminals from all over the world. As for the bounty, just ask the axe god Menka directly. As a small leader of Marine, axe god Menka also watches what others do. He is also respectful when meeting famous and powerful people. When he encounters weak people, he treats them as rubbish and doesn't even bother to take a look at them. He is even extremely harsh on his subordinates, giving him the most terrible punishment for even the slightest mistake. All the subordinates, and even the people in Shields Town, secretly gave Monka a nickname, that is, Monka the Axe Demon. However, while others are afraid of Menka, Luang is not afraid at all. Now he has the strongest power of the 4 emperors, not to mention stepping on the generals, he is almost there. Pulling the bandit king Rixiong, Luang came to the marine base where Menka was located amidst the surprised eyes of countless passers-by. Wait a moment, I'll report to Colonel Menka. After learning Luang's intention, a young marine immediately saluted, then turned around and rushed towards the majestic marine base behind him. Not long after, Menka, who was as tall as a mountain and wearing marine clothes and carrying a giant axe, appeared in front of Luang. Menka glanced at Rixiong indifferently and looked down at Luang condescendingly. Is this the criminal you want to exchange for the reward? Looking at the giant man who was no more than 2 meters tall in front of him, Luang raised the corners of his mouth slightly and smiled without fear. The enemy is this guy, Luang said as he took out the bounty drawings about Sun Bear. The face on it is exactly the same as the Sun Bear, and the reward is 8 million Baileys. Axe god Menka took a look at the promotional poster offering a reward, and sure enough, the person on the poster looked exactly like Sun Bear. Obviously, this Rixiong is a real person. But after glancing at Luang a few times, his face became full of suspicion. Because the bandit king Rixiong looks insignificant, his strength cannot be defeated by ordinary people, otherwise he would not be able to get the 8 million bounty. This guy looks very skinny, how could he possibly kill Sun Bear? He must have used some means to capture him. Menka, who was extremely cautious, glanced at Luang a few times, and after confirming that he had not seen this young man, he immediately had a sinister idea. He crossed his arms and said coldly, "Humph, I don't think this guy looks like him. You leave him here, and I will verify it carefully first, and then contact you after confirming the authenticity." After saying this, Menka immediately said to his subordinates, "Come here, escort this guy back to prison," etc. Luang held down Sun Shang with one hand and glanced at Menka coldly. If it is true or false, you should be able to tell it with your eyes. Don't talk nonsense with me. I am not a cat or a dog. If you think I am not enough if you want to get this bounty, just tell me, and we can practice hard. As a loyal fan of One Piece, how could Luang not know about Menka's urinary nature? This guy has made it clear that he wants to take advantage of his bounty. But even so, he couldn't point it out directly. Otherwise, if the other party gives up, it will be more difficult for him to get the reward. The best way is to defeat this big guy. As long as he is convinced, he will naturally not dare to have any evil thoughts again. In the world of One Piece, the law of the jungle is also the highest law. If you have big fists, you are the boss. If you are weak, you deserve to be trampled under your feet. There is no way to get justice. There are really only a handful of guys like Aokiji in Marine. After hearing Luang's words, Menka couldn't help but sneered. "Haha, you actually dared to challenge my axe hand Menka. You are really brave." Luang yawned and said, "Stop talking nonsense, do you dare to give it a try? If you win, you will give me the reward. If I lose, I will let you do whatever you want." Hearing Luang's provocation, Menka finally couldn't sit still. He said angrily, Okay, since you want to die, then I will help you." Then the two people set up their positions and each came to the open field. "Kid, before I die, I want to tell you my full name so that you won't even know who killed me after you die. My name will be..." "You talk so much nonsense." Before Meng Ka finished speaking, Luang took the long knife he got from the Bandit King and swung it directly at Meng Ka. Howling Wolf. In an instant, a giant wolf transformed from sword energy roared and flew towards Menka. What? Before Menka had time to react, he was knocked back more than 10 meters by the terrifying wolf, which was dozens of meters in size. His abdomen was torn apart by the wolf, leaving a bloody gash. After he landed on the ground, half of his body was covered in blood, and he was wailing in pain. Doctor, doctor, call the doctor quickly. A group of Marine soldiers gathered around anxiously. Soon, an old doctor in a white coat quickly ran over and began to disinfect Menka, stop bleeding and other emergency medical work. I only used less than 1% of my strength. I shouldn't be able to kill him, right? Looking at the sword in his hand, Luang actually became a little worried about Menka. Just now, he deliberately controlled his angle and avoided Menka's fatal part. Otherwise, Menka would definitely be torn apart by this sword, and he would be dead in the blink of an eye. Maybe Menka's vitality was complete enough, or maybe the doctor came in time enough. In less than an hour, Menka was able to move. With the support of everyone, he slowly walked up to Luang. At this moment, the look he looked at Luang no longer contained disdain and contempt. Being knocked down by a sword, he knew one thing very well, that is, the frail-looking man in front of him was someone he could not mess with. Luang played with balance on the tip of the knife with his fingertips, and looked at Menka teasingly. How about it, can we talk about it now? Menka looked at Luang with a complicated face for a moment, then nodded and said, wait a moment, I'll have someone get the bounty for you. At this moment, Menka was completely convinced. Although he is a colonel, Menka understands that in front of a truly strong man, this colonel is nothing. If one day he encounters a powerful pirate, he might be killed in the blink of an eye. I can only bully the people in this small town by showing off my power. Not long after, a marine came over carrying a small box of money. In the world of One Piece, there are two currencies. One is an ordinary paper money Bailey, and the other is a gold coin Bailey. The box in front of him that didn't seem to contain much made Luang slightly stunned when he opened it. There were actually 8 handfuls of paper towels neatly placed inside. Each handful contained 100 Baileys, and each Bailey had a face value of 10,000. The 8 handfuls taken together are exactly 8 million Baileys. This is a considerable amount of money in One Piece. At least, it is enough for Luang to eat and drink here until he is 100 years old. Luang took a casual look, and after confirming that the numbers were almost the same, he immediately carried them on his back. He said to the axe god who was grinning in pain, okay, then I'll leave this person to you. After saying this, Luang turned around and left, but he was stunned before he took 2 steps. Because I saw a familiar figure tied to a cross in another corner of the yard. Looking at the man wearing the iconic green headscarf, white t-shirt, waist-high waistband, and green trousers, Luang raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Isn't this the future great swordsman, Zoro God Tier, the left and right arm of One Piece? He walked towards Zoro without saying a word. Being familiar with the plot of One Piece, he understood that Zoro killed Monka's dog to save a girl. Unable to compensate, he promised Menka that he would not eat or drink here for a month. As the most principled and tough guy, Zoro possesses the perseverance and courage that Luang admires the most. Wait a minute, what do you want to do? Before Luang took 2 steps, Menka's voice sounded behind him. I'm not doing anything, I'm just curious and want to take a look, can't I? Luang grinned and looked deeply at Menka with majestic eyes. At this glance, Luang was full of domineering, but in an instant, Menka was sweating violently and feeling horrified. Menka swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, but, yes, you can do it yourself, you can do it yourself. How dare Menka, who was almost kicked to heaven by a sword, have the slightest dissatisfaction or opinion against Luang? When Luang looked at him, his head shrank. Walking neither fast nor slow, Luang soon came to this incomparable man who even admired him. Brother, are you okay? Hearing the unfamiliar words, Zoro's already chapped lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't say a word. Zoro opened his eyes and slowly raised his hard-lined face. He glanced at Luang without saying a word, and then lowered his head again. Luang knew that this guy was saving his energy, so he didn't even want to say a word. Monka. At this moment, Luang suddenly shouted without looking back. Hearing this call, Menka couldn't help but tremble. He immediately gritted his teeth and let everyone support him and walked slowly over. This moment was the most aggrieved he had ever felt, but he had to lower his head and come to Luang. Because this guy is really a ruthless person who can kill himself with one sword. Menka wiped the cold sweat that was constantly breaking out, and said with a smile, "Swordsman. Sir, do you have any instructions?" Seeing this scene, all the marine soldiers were shocked. But despite being shocked, everyone's eyes revealed a trace of invisible pleasure. They had been bullied by Menka for too long, and it was so satisfying to finally see someone who could defeat this devil. Luang glanced at Menka and said calmly, "I know he killed one of your dogs. How much does that dog cost? I will pay for it, and you let him go." Menka's expression froze when he heard this, and then he quickly waved his hands and said, "No, no, no, it's just a dog, worthless, worthless. If you want me to let him go, then I will let him go." How dare he accept Luang's money after he was almost killed by a sword, so he ordered his men to untie Zoro without saying a word. At this moment, a cute little girl suddenly rushed in from outside the gate and hugged Zoro, who had been released from restraints. "Oh, big brother, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Stop crying, I'm fine." Zoro gently patted the little girl's head, and then looked at Luang with gratitude. He nodded and said, "Thank you, I owe you a favor." Luang shook his head and smiled, then waved his hand and turned to leave. Let the matter go away without leaving any merit or fame. This is Luang's favorite style of doing things. He doesn't want to be a virgin, nor does he want to be a villain, he just wants to be a bounty hunter who does whatever he wants. This guy is unfathomable. Looking at Luang's leaving figure, Zoro couldn't help but show a hint of surprise as he was grateful. Seeing that Luang's back finally disappeared from sight, Menka breathed a sigh of relief. Just when he wanted to wipe away the sweat, he found a piece of paper in his hand. He couldn't help but spread it out and saw that there was a bailee with a face value of 10,000. Obviously, this money could not have been borne by him, but was given by Luang. How did he do that? Looking at the gold bailee in his hand, Menka's face was filled with astonishment. Luang left the marine base and walked slowly among this lively town. Listening to the conversations of passers-by, watching the children laughing and playing in the streets, and feeling the sea breeze blowing in front of him, Luang felt extremely comfortable. Although this is the world of One Piece, I have to say that Shieldstown is still a pretty good place. Gululu. Halfway through, Luang's belly suddenly made an unsatisfactory sound. Hearing the deafening sound, he couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Even if you are 4 emperors, you will inevitably be hungry and have to eat. Thinking that he had been really hungry all day, Luang thought about it and decided to fill his stomach first. So he walked all the way along the storefronts on the street. Come, guests, come and see and taste, we have chowder noodles made with the freshest and most delicious seafood. The most fragrant and delicious Donghai cuttlefish balls are here. Freshly baked Donghai cuttlefish balls. Don't miss it if you pass by. Guests, come and take a look. We have the most authentic and pure sea swordfish meat barbecue here. Paired with soju, you can enjoy it for 3 days. Smelling the fragrant food and listening to the shouts of various snack bar owners, Luang actually felt like he had returned to the real world. He walked to the shop that made seafood chowder noodles. Seeing a young and handsome guy handling all kinds of seafood delicacies with his hands and feet, he smiled and walked in. Luang didn't notice that just as he walked into the store, a figure with a laughing face also walked in. "Boss, let's order some seafood chowder noodles." "Okay." After ordering a meal, Luang found a seat and sat down. At this time, a familiar voice sounded behind Luang. "Hey boss, I want a seafood chowder noodle too." This sound. Luang was stunned for a moment, then looked sideways, and couldn't help but smile. Familiar little straw hat, sunny smile, white short tee, the person coming is actually One Piece from the future, Monkey D. Luffy. I met 2 heavyweight characters in one day. Wow, the arrangement of this system is really interesting. Luang sighed in admiration, picked up a glass of boiled water and drank it. At this moment, another familiar, slightly rich voice also sounded. "Boss, please have some seafood chowder noodles." Not long after he finished speaking, a figure with a sharp aura came to Luffy's side, found his seat and sat down. Luang looked to the right with strange eyes. Oh boy, even Zoro is here. Before Luang could speak, Luffy grinned and said, Hey, swordsman, your hair is so cool, do you want to be my partner? Zoro glanced at Luffy and said with a smile, you have good taste, but why do you want me to be your partner? Luffy patted his chest and said, because I want to be a One Piece man, but before I go to sea, I need to find a partner to help me. I feel that you are very powerful, and you must be a great partner. Ha ha, Zoro smiled and said, your dream is great, but I am a bounty hunter and I have no interest in being a pirate. Hearing the two people chatting, Luang's mind couldn't help but go back to the memories of watching One Piece in his hometown in the countryside last summer. At that time, when he was watching One Piece in his hometown, it was just when it became popular. Luffy met Zoro in the first few episodes, but this time it was not Luffy who rescued Zoro, but himself. But despite his own intrusion, the main plot of the pirates didn't seem to be affected much. These two people still met here. Obviously, in the world of One Piece, the main plot of fate cannot be easily changed by oneself. Where is Ace at this time? Thinking of the scene where Ace was kicked to death by Akainu, Luang felt particularly unhappy. This time, he will use his own strength and his own fists to change the fate of this character. Soon, the fragrant seafood chowder noodles arrived. The three extremely hungry people didn't care about their surroundings or the looks of others, and immediately went into crazy cooking mode without saying a word. This squid, this hairy crab, this lobster, and this noodles, these are so delicious. Luang, who at first wanted to chat with Zoro and Luffy while eating, immediately became obsessed with the taste of the seafood chowder noodles. He couldn't control himself at all and started eating like crazy. He never expected that this small seafood chowder noodles could be so delicious. The size of a wash basin, a whole bowl of seafood noodles, was finished by Luang in less than 10 minutes. If nothing else, just this bowl of noodles, this time travel is worth it. Luang drank all the noodles, seafood, and soup in one go. The various delicious flavors made him lick his tongue, seemingly unsatisfied. What, only 10 belly? It's so cheap, I'll give it to you. No, where's my money? Luffy touched his pocket and found that his money was missing. Seeing that Luffy, who had just talked about treating him to dinner, actually had no money, Zoro shook his head helplessly. Forget it, I'll pay for it myself. What the hell, I don't have any money either. Touching his pocket, Zoro suddenly looked embarrassed. Only then did he remember that he also had no money. The young boss glanced at the two of them, crossed his arms, and said in a bad tone, I advise you not to joke with me. If you want to have a meal, let's go to the marine base for a walk. Zoro said, wait a minute, I'm a bounty hunter, it's just 10 belly, I can just catch any criminal. At this moment, a burly man with a scar suddenly stood up slowly. Bounty hunter. What bothers Lousy the most is the bounty hunter. The man glanced at Zoro, pointed at himself with his thumb and said, Lousy is Scarguka who has a reward of 5 million belly. If you have the ability, come and exchange my head for money. 5 million, not bad. With a chuckle, Guka's face was suddenly grabbed by a hand, and then slammed to the ground. There was a loud bang. This criminal who was so arrogant and domineering a second ago was instantly killed by Luang in this second. Ding! Congratulations on defeating Scarguka and gaining strength plus 10. Zoro looked at Luang in astonishment. It's you. Luang grinned and said, sorry, I got there first. After saying this, Luang took out a 10,000 yuan bailey and smashed it on the seafood restaurant owner's table without saying a word. He raised the corner of his mouth slightly and said domineeringly, this should be enough to pay for the meals for the three of us, right? The seafood shop owner was stunned for a moment and turned pale. He never expected that the young man in front of him could be such a ruthless character, and he could kill a pirate with a bounty of 5 million in one fell swoop. Enough. Obviously Luang's move frightened the boss so much that he didn't even dare to pick up the 10,000 bailies on the table for a long time. Let's go, we'll see you again when we're destined. After leaving these words, Luang glanced at Luffy and Zoro, and then pulled the half-dead Guka out of the seafood shop. Rather than bickering with these two popular characters, he wants to travel freely in the world of One Piece. Catch a few criminals, make some money, and live a happy life. Of course, Ace still needs to be saved. Luang could not forget this. He traveled through One Piece in order to rescue this handsome and extremely cool Emperor Yan. He must make up for this regret, this unwillingness, and this unhappiness no matter what. After leaving the seafood noodle shop, Luang quickly took Guka to the marine base with ease. Reporting to the colonel, the young man named Luang killed another criminal and is now waiting for you downstairs to redeem the reward. Do you want to go down and meet him? Menka, who was drinking wine and enjoying it with a beautiful woman in his arms, almost spit out a mouthful of wine after hearing his subordinate's report. Why is this devil back? Soon, Menka slowly walked downstairs with the help of everyone. When he saw Luang's smiling face again, his heart skipped a beat. Menka smiled flatteringly, rubbed his palms, and said, "Sir Swordsman, have you caught another criminal?" Luang didn't waste any time and directly kicked Guka, who was lying on the ground like a salted fish, and said, "No, that's this guy. What's his name is Guka. He says he's a pirate with a bounty of 5 million. Come and identify him. Let's see if that's right. Go and lift this guy's face and let me see it." Yes. With the help of his subordinates, Menka quickly confirmed Guka's identity, and he was indeed one of the criminals with a reward on his head. Menka nodded and said, "Since you were right, then quickly go to the treasury to withdraw the bounty." Soon, a marine soldier brought back a box containing 5 million belly from the vault. Luang opened the box, glanced at it casually, then nodded and put it away. Gone. He waved his hand, turned around and left. Halfway through, Luang suddenly discovered a problem. That's why it seems inconvenient to have this money in your hand all the time. By the way, let me go and ask if there is such a thing as a bank in this world. While thinking about it, Luang turned around and walked back to the marine base. Soon, he learned the existence of the World Government Savings Bank from the trembling Menka. This kind of savings bank will be established in every larger town. Its function is not much different from that of ordinary banks. They both provide savings and cash expenditures to ordinary people. Of course, there are also loan services, but this is only the privilege of certain large merchants. Ordinary people, with little background and little strength, basically can't even think of getting a dime loan from a savings bank. Under Menka's guidance, Luang quickly found the World Government Savings Bank in Shieldstown and applied for a platinum card. Of course, he brought some cash with him just in case. Because although the technology in this world is also very developed, it has not yet developed to the point where credit cards can be swiped. If he wants to use a card, he can only go to a savings bank to withdraw cash and then spend money. By the way, I should also buy a boat, otherwise it will be inconvenient to go to sea. Thinking of my own small goal, it is to play the entire world of One Piece. If I don't have a boat, I still have to play with a hammer. After thinking for a while, Luang walked towards the dock here. The owner of the shipyard was a middle-aged man with a beard. When he found out Luang's purpose, he smiled and said, "I have all the boats with whatever displacement you want." Luang thought for a while, "Can you introduce it to me?" The middle-aged man said, "Of course, you come with me." As he walked out of the dock, he said to the workers who were still working, "Guys, I will accompany this guest to the port first. Don't be lazy, ha ha ha." Okay. Hearing the big man's laughter, Luang couldn't help but smile. He just likes to make friends with such bold and free-spirited people. Walking in the breezy port, blowing the cold and salty wind, John introduced to Luang one by one a bunch of large and small ships stationed near the port. Soon Luang took a fancy to one of the large ships, which was about 30 meters long and 10 meters wide. Hearing this, John's eyes lit up. He rubbed his palms and said with surprise and joy, "Oh, dear sir, are you sure? The price of this seagoing ship is not cheap." Luang smiled and said, "Ha ha, it's not like we need 10 million Baileys, right?" John shook his head and said, "Sir, you are joking, 10 million Baileys is not enough, but because this ship is equipped with 12 cannons, its price is not cheap, it is almost this amount." As John said this, he raised 5 fingers towards Luang. Luang narrowed his eyes and said, 5 million Baileys. John nodded. "Yes, 5 million Baileys, and if the customer can pay in full at once, I can give you 1,000 cannonballs for free. What do you think?" 1,000 cannonballs. Luang touched his chin and felt that he didn't need to do these fancy things. "But then I thought about it, it seemed a bit boring if I was traveling alone on this ship. Occasionally shooting seagulls, Poseidons, etc. with cannonballs seems to be a fun thing for entertainment. As soon as he thought about it, Luang nodded and said, "No problem, 5 million Baileys is 5 million Baileys, then when can you deliver the goods?" Seeing that Luang didn't even make any move to bargain, John's eyes couldn't help but shine with gold, and he was about to take off with joy. Rich man, Lousy is going to make a lot of money this time. John said, "Sir, if you are in a hurry, I can have workers process it day and night, and I can give you a brand new big ship in a month at most." A month? Luang was surprised. He didn't expect it to be so fast. In reality, he sometimes has to wait for half a year to buy a car. Unexpectedly, in the game, a seagoing ship can be built in a month. Luang didn't know that all this was because he gave too much. No matter the price, the profit made John laugh in his dreams, and he was naturally willing to go all out to meet the deadline. After all, it may not be possible to meet such a rich man in a year and a half, so he naturally has to seize this deal. "Okay, then I will come find you in a month. Now follow me to the savings bank, and I will transfer the corresponding funds to you." Then Luang and John went to the Shieldstown savings house and happily transferred the 5 million Baileys. Anyway, he just got this Bailey from killing Guka, so he doesn't feel bad at all if he spends it. After solving the problem of the ship, we have to find the crew again. We can't sail the ship alone without dying from exhaustion. Luang was thinking about it while walking on the street, and suddenly he saw a talent and job recruitment advertisement board. This is the advertising board for all the talents and companies in Shieldstown. It has various recruitment advertisements and self-introductions of various talents. Luang scanned a few circles from top to bottom, left to right, and suddenly, his eyes fell on one of the talent letters introducing himself. "I am a 9th level boatman. I am trained by Tom, the one-piece boatman. I am good at all repairs and maintenance of Grandmaster ships. I am good at steering and sailing. I also have some basic swordsmanship. Due to family difficulties, I need to make a living. I hope anyone in need can contact me as soon as possible. Contact address." After seeing this person introducing himself, Luang couldn't help but look happy. Isn't this kind of all-around talent exactly what he's looking for in a partner? Without saying a word, he walked quickly towards the address left on it. Luang was very fast, and within a few steps he found a small house hidden in an alley. Looking at the house number plate above, Luang shook his head. What a great meal. This small house is not big. It has 2 floors and is made of wood. The balcony on the 2nd floor is filled with a row of flowers. Obviously, this is a master who loves life. In line with the principle of politeness, Luang stretched out his hand and knocked lightly on the somewhat old wooden door. After a while, the sound of clinking pots and pans came from inside. Then, a burst of hurried footsteps approached quickly. When the door opened, a young and delicate boy's face poked out. "Brother, who are you looking for?" Luang glanced at the little boy and said with a smile, "I'm here to see Shino Nan." "Hino Man." The little boy was stunned for a moment, then turned his head and shouted to the family behind him, "Sister, someone is looking for you." "Elder sister." Luang was confused. Isn't this name a boy? How come he became a sister? As footsteps approached, a beautiful woman wearing casual trousers and a pink t-shirt walked out. The woman has a slender figure, a pleasant appearance, and a baby-fat little face with a hint of surprise. Are you the one who wants to hire me?" The woman was confused, and Luang was also puzzled. "Are you Shinuo Nan?" The woman stuck her head out and looked around, as if she was worried about being discovered. After seeing no one around, she pursed her lips and said to Luang, "You go ahead and talk." Although Luang was a little puzzled, he nodded and walked in. "Wait a moment while I clean up the house." After the woman said something, she quickly rushed into the kitchen. After entering the wooden house, Luang glanced briefly, with a trace of surprise in his eyes. A yellow dining table, 2 wooden stools, a small bookshelf with 7 or 8 rows of books, plus an old-fashioned couch with old colors and numerous cracks. This is all the furnishings in the wooden house. The whole small house couldn't be simpler. If there is anything that can be considered a little bit stylish, it is the bookshelf. Do you want it to be so simple? There are not many people in my hometown village who are in this kind of embarrassment. After entering the wooden house, the little boy took a book in his hands, climbed up the wooden ladder obediently, and returned to his room. And Luang casually sat on one side of the sofa. Soon, the woman came out of the kitchen. Hello, my name is Shinuolin. I actually changed the name in the previous introduction on purpose because I was worried that someone with ulterior motives would come to my door. The woman said with a sweet smile and extended her right hand in a friendly manner. Luang gave it a gentle squeeze, and the soft and greasy feel made him look a little strange, but he quickly pulled it back. I'm Luang, I found you after reading the advertisement. Speaking of this, Luang glanced at Shi Nuonan suspiciously, but are you sure you are studying under that boatman Sam from One Piece? I remember that guy only took on 2 apprentices. When did he take on a female apprentice? Apprentice. Shinuolin stuck out his tongue and said, I have no choice but to make a living. I have no choice but to do this, but please believe that I really have the most professional shipbuilding skills. I am not only a grandmaster repairer, but also everything about the ship. I know all the operation skills, and please don't report me to the labor association, because my brother and I depend on each other, and our life is really difficult. As Shinuolin spoke, he clasped his hands and kept begging. Luang thought that Tian really left such a foreshadowing, but he accidentally discovered it, but he didn't expect that it was a big deception. He turned around and left without even thinking about it. Wait, sir, don't leave. Seeing that Luang wanted to leave, Shinuolin immediately stopped him. Although the man in front of her looks unattractive, he still dares to come to her after seeing her salary requirements. He is definitely a wealthy person. Such a rich man cannot be let go easily no matter what, otherwise he may really be reduced to drinking in bars. Luang looked at Shinuolin impatiently and said, what's the matter? He hates cheating the most. Even if there is a beautiful woman in front of him, he will not give her a good look. This is a matter of principle and he cannot give in. Shinuolin said, Sir, although I did not learn from the great boatman Sam, I am indeed a 9th-level boatman. As she spoke, she took out a 9th-level boatman certification certificate stamped with the seal of the World Government Boatwrights Association from her pocket. Luang glanced at the certification, and then remained silent for a few seconds. He glanced at the wooden house and the wooden ladder that the little boy climbed up just now. After a moment, Luang slowly said, I am a bit rich, but I don't support idle people. If you can't prove your worth on my ship, I will let you off the ship at any time. Hearing this, Shinuolin was stunned for a moment, and then his face was filled with surprise. Okay, sir, call me Captain. Yes, sir. ... In this way, the first unreliable partner and employee was recruited by Luang. In order to prevent Shinuolin from starving to death before her ship was built, Luang casually gave her 100,000 belly. But after giving it, Luang immediately rubbed oil on the soles of his feet and ran away in the blink of an eye. Because Shinuolin's eyes were full of mist and he almost pounced on him. After solving the problems of sailing and repairing the ship, we should find a chef next, right? Luang touched his chin and continued to browse the advertisement column, but after looking around, he shook his head and chose to give up. The chefs here are really bad. Most of the old men, even the young ones, are unwilling to be cooks on the ship. By the way, you can go to the sea restaurant then. I remember that Blackfoot came from there. There should be a lot of guys there who are particularly good at cooking. Luang walked to a tavern while thinking. Listening to the sounds of people chatting inside, he raised the corner of his mouth slightly and walked in slowly. Did you know? Another big shot has appeared in our East China Sea. Oh, what a big shot, let's talk about it. That's Hawkeye. It's said that he cut off the pirate Admiral Creek's ship with a single blow. That scene was so shocking. Hawkeye. Is that Shichibukai Hawkeye, the legendary man who sits on the throne of the #1 swordsman in the world? Of course, there is no other eagle except this one, and do you know why he killed the pirate admiral's ship? Ah, what's the reason? According to rumors, it was because they saw Hawkeye rowing a boat with the most powerful black knife. Luang was drinking wine while listening to the various talks of the guests in the tavern. When he heard the news about Hawkeye, he couldn't help but raise his brows, showing a hint of expectation. Hawkeye, the strongest swordsman in the world, you came at the right time. My sword is already thirsty. Knowing that Hawkeye had come to the East China Sea, he looked much more excited than ordinary people. Although he already has the power of the red-haired four emperors, it is still not enough to make him feel invincible. Hawkeye's unrivaled swordsmanship is just the thing to take him to the next level. He really wanted to know if after copying the red-haired ability and gaining Hawkeye's sword skills, there would be even more special results. In the next month, Lu Ang returned to Windmill Village once. After paying the rent completely, he packed up and boat and returned to Shields Town. In addition, he is also actively looking for other crew members, because he always feels that Shinolin is unreliable. The reason why he was finally willing to give her a chance was because he saw the shadow of his sister in this guy. Because he is a left-behind child, only he and his sister depend on each other. If it weren't for his sister, he probably would have starved to death in the village when he was a child. Although Shinolin's asking price is not low, to him, it is just a drop in the bucket and nothing at all. Of course, if this guy is deceiving himself and doesn't understand anything, there is no way he can keep her here. He is not a philanthropist, nor is he a bad person. It's a pity that after a month, Lu Ang still couldn't find the necessary manpower such as a suitable helmsman, chef and ship's doctor. Forget it, let's look for it while we're walking. Lu Ang shook his head and sighed helplessly. On the day when the boat was delivered, he briefly understood some basic boating precautions and then set off with Shinolin. As for Shinolin's younger brother, he was left behind in Shields Town. Of course, the considerate Lu Ang still gave Shinolin's brother a large sum of money, which was enough to make him self-sufficient for 20 years. After the ship set sail, Shinolin was indeed very skilled in maneuvering the ship. After learning that Lu Ang wanted to find a chef at a restaurant on the sea, she immediately maneuvered the ship with quick hands and feet, and excitedly steered the ship toward the southwest. Why does this guy look so excited? On the deck of the ship, lying on a special high-end lounge chair, Lu Ang drank juice while looking at Shinolin in front of him. Although he didn't want to say it, he had to admit that Shinolin's figure was really impressive. Wearing jeans, her whole body looks curvy and curvy. Especially when she was at the helm, she would twist her butt and sing popular songs from time to time, which made Lu Ang a little unbearable. After looking at it for a few times, he quickly turned his attention elsewhere. This is the world of One Piece, so don't mess around. As a man with integrity, he doesn't want to do anything to take advantage of others, even though his body's reaction is quite honest. Breathing the cool sea breeze and listening to the calls of seagulls flying past from time to time, Lu Ang quickly fell asleep comfortably. He didn't know how long he had slept, but Lu Ang was suddenly woken up by an anxious cry. Sir, there are pirates attacking. What the hell? Lu Ang rubbed his sleepy eyes and slowly opened them. Then he saw Shinolin's delicate and charming face, and said with a look of anxiety, Sir, there are pirates attacking. Lu Ang rolled his eyes at Shinolin and said, Call me Captain. Okay, sir. Lu Ang stood up, put his hands in his pockets, and walked slowly to the bow. His eyes moved slightly, and he saw a huge sea ship approaching him quickly. Looking at the flag of the sea ship, he couldn't help but smile. It was a skull with a side face. There was a red heart on the skull, and behind the skull were two crossed bones. This flag is so familiar to him. It turns out they are the Alita pirates. Not bad, not bad. I can use you to test my physical skills. With a faint smile, Lu Ang said, Shaolin, prepare for war. Shinolin looked at Lu Ang in disbelief. Ah, sir, are you serious? Lu Ang said proudly with his eyes open. Of course, I am a god-tier bounty hunter. When I see prey coming to my door, there is no reason to let it go. Don't you know how to learn basic swordsmanship? Then pick up your weapon and follow me. Let's fight together. God-tier bounty hunter, then why have I never heard of it? Shinolin muttered as he turned around and walked towards the cabin, ready to get his sword. Young boys, get ready to fight by boat. With Erida's roar, all the pirates who had just approached immediately jumped down from above with shouts. In the blink of an eye, a dozen pirates with extraordinary skills came to Lu Ang with swords. Erida stepped on the wooden planks that were set up and walked step by step to Lu Ang's boat with heavy steps. Carrying a huge mace, she looked down at Lu Ang and said, Are you the captain? Lu Ang smiled and said, My enemy, I am the captain. Erida held the mace, pointed at Lu Ang with the sharp head and said, Very good, then I will officially announce that I have accepted your ship. If you have no objections, you can get out. Disembarking. Lu Ang shook his head. I have an opinion. Hearing this, Arida's plump face couldn't help but frown. She said with disdain, do you have an opinion? So what if you have an opinion? If you don't get out, okay, I'll give you my mace right away. Go to hell. Hell, ha, I haven't seen it, and I don't want to see it for the time being, but if you want, I can give you a ride. After speaking, Lu Ang's figure suddenly disappeared. With her face full of anger, Arita was preparing to kill Lu Ang with a mace, but suddenly she found that her target was missing. She looked left and right with confusion on her face. Where are the people? Your grandpa is here. With a sneer, Lu Ang flashed and came directly in front of Arlia. Looking at that fat face that could produce oil, Lu Ang added Conqueror's domineering force to his right fist without saying a word. The next second, he hit Arita hard on the chin. Wow! With a scream, Arita's whole body seemed to have been hit by a cannonball, and she flew wildly towards the sky in an instant. It wasn't until it turned into a black dot that she quickly fell down. Boom! With a loud noise, Arita's whole body was like a meteorite, directly smashing the deck of Lu Ang's ship and instantly embedded into the bottom of the ship. A scream came from the cabin. Then a woman wearing jeans and a red and pink t-shirt rushed out holding an exquisite dagger. This woman is naturally Shinolan, who just came down. Shinolan, who ran to the deck, couldn't help but be confused when he saw a big hole in the deck. Looking at the fierce-looking pirates around her, no matter how stupid she was, she knew what was going on. Obviously, pirates are attacking. However, these pirates, who usually looked extremely ferocious and killed without blinking an eye, were now trembling and their faces were pale. As if he had seen something terrifying, his whole body was trembling and he did not dare to say a word. Following the direction of the frightened gazes of these pirates, Shinolan saw a lazy Lu Ang. Looking at the fat woman who smashed the deck and embedded it directly inside, Bingshe was so smart that she immediately understood. I am afraid that the boss of this pirate group wanted to kill Lu Ang and steal their ship, but he was killed by Lu Ang instead. At this time, Lu Ang was picking out his itchy ears out of boredom while glancing back and forth at the trembling pirates. He said lazily, according to the rules of the sea, after I kill your boss, your ship and the things on it should belong to me, right? One of the bearded pirates who looked slightly burlier gritted his teeth and nodded, indeed. At this moment, Lu Ang saw a little boy with frightened eyes and short pink hair hiding on the Arita ship. Isn't this guy just Kirby? He raised the corner of his mouth slightly, glanced at Kebi, and said to him, that guy on the boat, get off here. Hearing Lu Ang calling him, Kebi sat on the ground in shock. Ah, he called me, dead, he must want to kill me, what should I do, what should I do? Looking at the guy whose face was pale with fear, Lu Ang couldn't help but feel funny. Having watched One Piece, he knows that this guy really has a lot of inner drama. Lu Ang raised his face solemnly and said, come down quickly, I will count to 3, if you don't come down, then I will kill you. 1, 2, 3. Just a second after the word 3 fell, Kebi jumped up suddenly and ran down the horizontal board without saying a word. Don't kill me, I'm coming. Kebi gasped and looked at Lu Ang with fear. Seeing this guy's face covered with tears and looking like a crybaby, Lu Ang became furious. Don't cry, if you shed another tear, I will kill you immediately. If you choke on one more word, I will kill you too. If you tremble again, I will kill you too. 3 consecutive killing words frightened Kebi so much that he looked like a paralyzed piece of wood, looking at Lu Ang with fear. This guy obviously looks harmless to humans and animals, but how can he be countless times scarier than Alrida? Lu Ang glanced at Kebi and said, very good, I want you to remember one thing. Men can die and lose, but they must not shed tears. This is waste, a weak person, and a sign of incompetence. Men can die and lose, but they must never shed tears. This sentence flashed through Kebi's mind like thunder. He looked at his hands and was silent for a long time. By the way, I'm a man, how can I shed tears easily? I don't want to be weak, I want to be strong. Looking at Kebi, who slowly clenched his fists and his eyes gradually became resolute, Lu Ang couldn't help laughing. Very good, with this look in his eyes, I will give you this boat, but you won't help me send these guys to the nearest marine base, as for you. Speaking of this, Lu Ang showed a smile. Take these as your pledge of honor and become a Marine. Ha, Marine. Kirby's face was full of confusion, and he didn't understand why the extremely powerful man in front of him actually asked him to become a Marine. There's no one better suited to be a Marine than you. Lu Ang rubbed Kebi's head, and then said to the other pirates, now, bring me all the ropes and chains on your ship immediately. Yes, all the pirates who were scared to death by Lu Ang dared not say a word. Without saying a word, they rushed back to the ship and started looking for various chains and ropes. Not long after, with the cooperation of Kebi and Shinolan, all the pirates, including Alita, who was knocked unconscious, were tied up tightly. Standing on the tip of Arida's big ship, Lu Ang said condescendingly to Kebi, do your best, I look forward to the day when you become a general. I will definitely do a good job, Mr. Lu Ang. Kebi waved goodbye to Lu Ang. Wait until the day you become a general, then come and have a good fight. Looking at Kebi's childish face, Lu Ang showed a hint of expectation. Looking at the big ship going away, Shinolan showed a trace of regret. Is such a good ship just given to him like this? Looking at the big ship behind him, which was countless times bigger, Lu Ang smiled and said, oh, give up the small to get the big. Only when you give up can you gain something. You are still young, so learn from it. My little, Shinolan looked at her breasts, her little face gradually bulging out, I'm not small. The days on the boat are extremely lazy and leisurely. Lu Ang, who is bored and leisurely, will occasionally chat with Shinolan. After in-depth understanding, he finally knew how the 9th-level boatman in Shinolan came to be. It turns out that her family was also a wealthy family earlier, and her parents were in the shipyard business. Because she liked to study the structure and construction process of various types of ships since she was a child, she learned a lot of technical work from her parents. Bing She is so smart that she quickly learned the repair, maintenance, and upkeep of various types of ships like a grandmaster. Soon, she obtained the highest level 9 shipwright certification. But one day in the future, a big pirate broke into the town and killed all her family, friends, and relatives. She just escaped this disaster by taking care of her younger brother at home, but after this incident, her family gradually plummeted from wealth to poverty. Even in order to pay off the debt, she had to sell her original big house, and then built a small wooden house with her bare hands to live with her brother. As for swordsmanship, she does have some experience in it. But I just learned from a wandering swordsman, and I only knew a little bit about it, not a grandmaster at all. What a sad story. Lu Ang shook his head, and then poured a glass of red wine for Shinolan. Come on, drink this glass of wine and forget about those unpleasant pasts. Then Lu Ang handed over the red wine. Shinolan was stunned for a moment, then gritted his teeth and knelt down on one knee. Sir, please accept me as your disciple. Looking at the 2 waves of white snow in front of him, Lu Ang took a deep breath and quickly glanced to the other side. You get up first. Ah, sir, you agreed. Hearing Lu Ang's words, Shinolan immediately stood up happily. Lu Ang took a sip of red wine and chuckled. Becoming stronger is not that simple. Shinolan shook his head and said firmly, it's okay, I'm not afraid. No matter how hard or tired I am, I will learn. I must become a strong man, and then kill all the pirates. When he said this, Shinolan's eyes were filled with angry flames. Looking at the eyes full of hatred and anger, Lu Ang was silent for a few seconds. He knows that there are 2 ways to make a person stronger. One is talent, the other is extraordinary stimulation, such as monstrous hatred. Although Lu Ang could not sympathize with Shinolan's sworn hatred, he also knew how painful it was for her. Lu Ang didn't think for a long time, he quickly nodded and said, okay, in that case, let's start special training from today. Really? Shinolan's eyes lit up with surprise. She didn't expect Lu Ang to do it as he said, and she almost jumped up with joy. Seeing Shinolan so happy, Lu Ang couldn't help but sneered. Don't think it's fun, I tell you, this special training is not that simple. Shinolan's face was slightly red, she held her pink fist excitedly and said, it's okay, I'm not afraid. Afterwards, Lu Ang began to conduct special training for Shinolan. Having already become a grandmaster in swordsmanship, he knew that in order to improve his swordsmanship, the first thing he had to do was to improve his own strength. Just like Zorro had been training for many years, he immediately moved various equipment from the cabin that pirates used for daily training. From the first day, Shinolin started training with weights. The second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. Although the process of special training is extremely difficult and painful. But Shinolin actually showed extraordinary perseverance and gritted his teeth and persevered. Sure enough, hatred is the biggest driving force to force a person to become strong. Lying on the recliner, Luang drank juice while comfortably supervising the sweating Shinolin. Time flies so fast, 1 month has passed very quickly. In this process, Shinolin's strength also increased extremely rapidly, from the initial 10 pounds to 100 pounds. Although it is still very difficult, Shinolin can now hit 100 pounds of impact with one punch. But that's not enough. Luang knows that in this extremely perverted world of One Piece, even if you punch with 1,000 pounds of power, you still have no power to protect yourself. You must at least be at the level of a lieutenant general, so that you can truly achieve the level of self-protection. Sir, the restaurant on the sea has arrived. Luang, who was drinking afternoon tea, suddenly heard the voice coming from Shinolin at the helm. Oh, Luang stood up slowly, with his hands in his pockets, and walked happily to Shinolin's side. From a distance, he saw a huge and luxurious super ship appearing in his eyes. Looking at the 3-story luxurious pavilions built on the ship, Luang seemed to smell a hint of delicious food. Here is the most prestigious and top-notch mobile food city in the entire East China Sea. Let's go over and taste how tempting this legendary restaurant on the sea can be. Yes, sir. Call Captain. Okay, sir. Under Shinolin's full acceleration, their ship came close to them not long after. After dropping the giant anchor, Luang grabbed Shinolin and jumped directly to Barati, a sea restaurant that was several times larger than their ship. After seeing Luang and Shinolin boarding the ship, the sailors guarding the ship immediately brightened up and greeted them politely. Dear guests, do you want to eat? Luang smiled and said, of course, I'm going to be hungry. Bring me any delicious food. Okay, then please come with me. This sailor was obviously a good and well-versed guy, and he politely introduced various delicious cuisines to Luang and the two of them along the way. Luang, who was not particularly hungry to begin with, couldn't help but become hungry after listening to the sailor's introduction. For the past month, he has been eating the food cooked by Shinolin, and he is simply tired of it. I finally get a chance to change my taste, so of course I won't be polite. After entering the restaurant, a dedicated waiter immediately greeted you. I want a seat by the window where I can see the sea. Okay, please come this way. After getting Luang's request, the waiter immediately took him to the window seat with the best view of the sea. Everything you need is available here. Soon, the waiter brought out a thick recipe book. When he was about to order, Luang glanced at the waiter in surprise because he smelled a faint smell of perfume. But this is not important. What is important is that this waitress really has some big breasts. At this moment, Shinolin suddenly coughed and said, Ahem, sir, would you like to order first? Luang was stunned for a moment, then his face turned red, he nodded and said, order. This is so embarrassing. However, in this world of One Piece, why are all the girls so turbulent? Luang glanced at Shinolin inadvertently, then shook his head and continued to order. What do you mean? Do you think I'm small? Shinolin, who has a delicate mind and is particularly good at observing words and expressions, obviously noticed Luang's expression and immediately puffed up his face in anger. But Luang, who was attracted by the delicious food, would not pay attention to these. He quickly ordered more than a dozen delicacies that looked full of color, flavor with his eyes full of anticipation. Okay, please wait a moment, the food will be here later. As the busty waitress twisted her waist and left, Luang didn't look back for a long time. Shinolin. Sir, is it big? Luang. Well, it's quite big. Just after saying this, Luang suddenly remembered something and couldn't help but blush. As soon as he looked back, he saw a shy and angry pretty face staring at him. Realizing that he had said the wrong thing, Luang quickly turned his head to the window on the left. Ahem, what? The sea view is not bad, look at the sea, look at the sea. I have to say that this restaurant on the sea is professional. In less than 10 minutes, all the dishes Lu Ang ordered were served. Lu Ang was dumbfounded when he saw a whole table of seafood dinners neatly laid out. There are giant lobsters that are 2 meters in size, oysters that are larger than the size of your palm, super hairy crabs, and all kinds of seafood that you have never seen before. These delicacies, which were exactly the same as the recipes, were perfectly displayed in front of Lu Ang in a complete state of color, flavor and flavor. Smelling the rich and fragrant smell, Lu Ang could not help but drool. This smells so good, no, lousy is going to do it. Lu Ang, who was waving his index finger, didn't care what others thought, and turned on the cooking mode whenever he disagreed. It's so fragrant, lobster can actually do this. What kind of meat is this? Why is it so tender and delicious? It's so delicious. No, the paste of this super hairy crab is too sweet. I want to kill 100 of them. While Lu Ang devoured the food, he kept making uncontrollable sounds of admiration in his heart. He originally thought that the food was nothing more than that, but he didn't understand until he ate the food at this restaurant on the sea. Why is this dish just because it exists in heaven, and it means that it is rare to smell it on earth? Shinolin was also stunned by Lu Ang's cooking mode. Fearing that her captain would be choked, she quickly handed him a glass of juice. Slow down, don't be in a hurry. Lu Ang took the juice in seconds, drank it in one gulp, and then continued to fight fiercely with the food. Completely different from Lu Ang's frantic cooking attitude, Shinolin used a fork to roll up the noodles in front of him little by little, and then slowly put them into his mouth. Her movements are gentle and elegant. She is not an aristocrat, but she is better than an aristocrat. Her eating appearance and Lu Ang's are simply two extremes. While Lu Ang was frantically cooking, a burly man wearing armor was carried by a thin companion and stepped into the sea restaurant with difficult steps. Please, please give me something to eat. I'm so hungry. I'm really dying. Please. Seeing this man wearing golden armor and a sinister face walking in the door, a waiter was frightened and rushed to the kitchen. Isn't this the legendary pirate Admiral Creek? Why is he here? Oh my god, I have to leave, it's too dangerous here. Why are such vicious pirates here? Didn't you say it's safe here? Mom, I want to go home, it's too scary here. How can the restaurant on the sea allow such people to come in? Get them out immediately. Listening to everyone talking about each other, feeling the fear and disgust in their expressions, Crick quickly said, "Don't be afraid, I'm just here for a bite to eat." Really, I'll leave right away after eating. We'll never cause trouble. Not long after, a man in a suit with curly eyebrows and blonde hair walked out with crisp footsteps. He held a half-burned cigarette in his mouth and glanced at the man who was kneeling and begging, "Do you want to eat?" "Yes, please give me some food. No matter how much it is, I'm really going to starve to death. I'm about to die. Please, please." Crick kowtowed and begged with tears streaming down his face. The man in a suit blew out a smoke ring and said, "Okay, just wait a moment." After saying that, he walked back under the man's stunned eyes. Not long after, the man in a suit came out with a plate of delicious food. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned, and then started to curse. "Don't feed him, this devil won't thank you. Yes, pirates are all white-eyed wolves and evil villains. Don't feed them. What's going on with this chef? Can you please stop being a bad guy and drive this bad guy off the ship quickly?" Crick didn't expect that the chef in front of him was actually willing to give him food, and he was immediately moved to tears. "Wow, thank you. I will always remember this kindness." After a burst of thanks, Crick took the plate of delicious food and began to devour it without saying a word. The way he was cooking like crazy was a match for Lu Ang, and they became two unique sights in the entire sea restaurant. At this moment, a chef suddenly rushed out from behind, pointed at Crick and roared, "Hurry up and get rid of this big devil. He once dressed up as Marine, killed his boss, and robbed the warship. He was particularly despicable and vicious. Sometimes he even enters port towns under the flag of Marine, burning, killing and looting civilians, doing all kinds of evil. You must not let him have enough to eat." But having said that, the man in the suit still didn't take away Crick's food. He looked at the extremely hungry Chris with gentle eyes. For him, a chef is to cook food for people. Even if the other person is a vicious person, he is still a being in need of food in the face of hunger. As long as food is needed, then his existence as a chef has meaning. Isn't it the value of being a chef to make the most delicious food and give it to those who need it most? It didn't take long for Crick to eat so much that he even burped. Thank you so much. Crick wiped the corners of his mouth and looked at the man in the suit with an evil smile. The man in a suit blew out a smoke ring and said calmly, "You're welcome." But unexpectedly, as soon as he said this, Crick smiled ferociously, stood up without saying a word, and beat up the man in the suit fiercely. Puff! The man in the suit, who was completely defenseless, was instantly knocked to the ground and spit out a mouthful of blood. "No, Captain, you promised me to bring you here to eat, and you won't mess around. How could you do this?" At this time, Ajin, the companion beside Crick, could not help but angrily reprimanded. At this time, Crick's face was full of disdain. He laughed and said, "Why should I let such a good ship and such a good restaurant go? Isn't being a pirate just about grabbing what you want?" Speaking of this, Crick suddenly yelled at the chefs present, "You guys prepare meals for 100 people for Lousy immediately. There are still many hungry men on Lousy's ship." As soon as Crick finished speaking, an ordinary-looking man wearing a black cloak appeared in front of him. Then, a hand quickly approached and grabbed his face at an unimaginable speed. What? As soon as Crick said these words, the next second, his whole body was smashed into the floor. This time, the wooden floor cracked for 2 to 3 meters. But Crick, who was still arrogant and domineering a second ago, turned his eyes white and lay motionless in the deep hole. Ding! Congratulations on defeating the pirate Admiral Crick and gaining strength plus 2. Sorry, you disturbed Lousy while he was eating. Looking at the body of Crick who had already passed out, Luang clapped his hands and spoke calmly. As if he had just done something very trivial, there was no trace of any fluctuation in his tone or expression. He actually killed the pirate Admiral Crick in one fell swoop. Oh my god, who is he? Is he Major General Marine? Or is he a hidden big pirate? Everyone was stunned and dumbfounded by the scene in front of them. 100 dying people, the man in the suit murmured to himself, then blew out a smoke ring and walked slowly towards the kitchen. Blackfoot Sanji. At this moment, Luang suddenly stopped the man in suit. Sanji paused for a moment, then turned around. "Huh, how do you know my name?" Luang smiled and said, "Of course I know you. Not only are you amazing at cooking, but you are also very powerful in your legs and feet. In addition, you also have an extremely kind heart. As a chef, you will never see a hungry person coming to you. You look like you're begging for food." Having said this, Luang paused and gave Sanji a meaningful look. "If I guess correctly, you should be going to the kitchen now to prepare 100 portions of food for this white-eyed wolf, right?" Sanji was silent for a moment, then slowly raised his head. "It is my responsibility as a chef to cook for people who need food." Hearing this, Luang was stunned for a moment, and then gave him a thumbs up. It must be said that this kind of extremely positive belief is an extremely rare quality in the cruel and cold-blooded world of One Piece. It's a pity that there are too few such people. There are only a handful of them, otherwise there would not be a pirate world where the weak eat the strong and the fittest survive. TCH, why are you thinking so much? Now that you have come to this world, just have a good time and do it to see whoever is unhappy. With a flash of thought, Luang said to Sanji, "You should leave your 100 meals to those who are more in need. Those people can't eat it." Sanji looked confused. "What do you mean?" Luang grinned, "Because I will send them to the marine base to collect the bounty. As for starvation, you don't have to worry about it. In Marine's prison, there will definitely be a long-term supply of delicious meals." Hearing this, Sanji nodded slightly. "Okay, in that case, I'll help you." Seeing Sanji was about to leave, Luang quickly stopped him. "Wait a minute, besides you, do you have any younger and more promising chefs here?" Sanji paused, turned around, looked at Luang for a few times and then said, "Do you want to hire a chef?" Luang understood and couldn't help but laugh. "Don't worry, I'm not a pirate or a marine, I'm just a free bounty hunter." Sanji nodded and said, "Yes, just wait a moment." In less than 3 minutes, Sanji walked out carrying a little boy about 10 years old. "Sanji, sooner or later I'm going to beat you up." The little boy had green hair and kept punching and kicking Sanji with his teeth and claws. Unfortunately, he was too small and couldn't reach Sanji. "Fly, why does this tone sound so familiar?" Seeing the green-haired little boy, Luang couldn't help but smile. The little guy in front of me seems to be a combination of Luffy and Zoro, and he looks very unruly. Sanji looked at the little boy with a smile and said, his name is Balaya Sanya. He is a close disciple of red-footed Tetsuo. Although this guy is quite difficult to deal with, in terms of his talent for cooking, he said that secondly, we no one dares to say that this restaurant on the sea is the best, but... Having said this, Sanji glanced at Luang with a hint of provocation and said, this guy is famous for his thorns. Are you sure you can suppress him? Luang glanced at Shanya, grinned and said, it's just a brat, I haven't taken it seriously yet. Shanya was extremely smart and immediately looked at Luang after hearing that Sanji was going to give him to this guy. Soon he looked disdainful and said, you stupid fool, you want to take me away, so you better take a piss first and look after yourself. In that case, I'll leave him to you. It just so happens that he also wants to go out and see the world. Sanji said as he threw Shanya over. Hey, let me show you my kicking skills. Shanya flew from the air with a wicked smile, and with the help of Sanji's push, he turned around crazily in an instant. Ham! With a loud shout, his right foot quickly turned red as he turned, and kicked Luang hard like fire. A kicking skill similar to Sanji's. Interesting. Faced with the extremely hot kick, Luang did not dodge or evade, and his right hand was wrapped with armed domineering force in an instant. I saw Luang reaching out with his right hand, and in a very brief moment, he grabbed Shanya's right foot. You idiot, even steel will melt with this kick of mine. Shanya laughed loudly, but he didn't expect it to stop after laughing for a few seconds. Because, the hand of the man in front of me was actually unscathed. As that, armed color hockey. Sanji looked stunned and couldn't help but drop the cigarette in his hand. He noticed the color of Luang's right hand. It was as black as ink and as lustrous as steel. It was obviously the legendary domineering entanglement. It seems like your ham isn't that good either. Luang pinched Shanya's right foot and then made him stand on his head. Although Shanya's kicking skills are good, the flesh of his legs and feet is not made of steel. How can he withstand Luang's strength? He grinned in pain and began to cry out in pain. Oh, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, let me go, you fool. Luang laughed and said, little devil, are you convinced? Shanya, I don't accept it, I don't accept it, I don't accept it, let me go quickly, or I'll look good on you later. Luang, oh, I don't accept it. If that's the case, then just keep shaking. Shanya, let me go. If you have the ability, let me go. Let's fight again. I was careless just now. I didn't dodge. Luang, that's such a pity. I don't have the habit of giving others a second chance. If you lose, you lose. Shanya clenched his fists and looked at Sanji with gritted teeth. Sanji, hurry up and beat him away. Sanji didn't expect Luang to be so powerful. He looked solemnly and looked at Luang deeply. This man is dangerous. Although it was just a hint of strength, Sanji knew one thing very well in relation to the previous scene where he instantly felled Creek. That is, this man may be many times more powerful than he imagined. At this time, Sanji did not listen to Shanya's request, but lit up a cigarette again. He slowly blew out a smoke ring, and then said amazing words. Shanya, go to sea with him. Hearing this, Shanya was stunned. Why did this guy turn his arm outward? Didn't you see that he was beaten to pieces? Before Shanya could speak, Sanji said to Shanya with a solemn face, listen Shanya, this man is far more powerful than you and I imagined. If you go to sea with him, you will definitely have a chance to find what you want. Including your enemies, this is an excellent opportunity for you to rise. Soon Shanya was brought back to the ship by Luang. Although this guy is small, Luang has no intention of looking down on him at all. Its powerful kicking skills are comparable to one of Marine's 6-style shaving, and even with the scorching effect of flames, it may be even stronger. If you cultivate it well, your future achievements will definitely be no less than that of Blackfoot Sanji. Shanya was a little dissatisfied at first, but after seeing Luang easily taming the pirate Creek and hundreds of members of the Creek pirates, he had no choice but to stay convinced. My dear disciple, go to the nearest Marine base now, and we'll send these guys to Marine to collect the bounty. Shinolin. Yes, sir. Luang. Call the captain. Shinolin. Yes, sir. Luang. As a 9th-level ship repairman and helmsman, Xinolin was very familiar with the East China Sea. He turned around and immediately headed southwest quickly. The days at sea are lazy and comfortable. After joining the little kid Shanya, the ship has become lively. As a little kid, Shanya also shouted to join the special training after seeing Xinolin training. He said he wanted to become stronger in order to defeat his enemies. As for who the enemy was, he was unwilling to speak no matter what Luang said, so Luang had no choice but to give up. But this guy's perseverance is really good. He was able to persist with Xinolin for 6 full days. Luang was also a little surprised to see that the intensity of Shanya's weight-bearing training was not weaker than that of Xinolin. But thinking that this guy had been following red-footed Tetsuo all along, he felt relieved in the blink of an eye. With such a terrifying master in front of me, what does a little weight training mean? Under Luang's guidance, within half a month, Xinolin's weight increased from 100 pounds to 150 pounds. This woman is tougher and much stronger than he looks. Normally, only 12 hours of special training would be enough for her, so she forced herself to add 18 hours. It was this desperate special training that rapidly enhanced her strength. Of course, Shanya also deserves some of the credit for this. As a chef, Shanya also has his own experience in nutritional matching. All 3 meals a day are different and full of nutritional value. Enjoying the delicacies no less delicious than those at the sea restaurant, Luang also admired his own skill. As for Creek and his members, they ate Luang's leftover meals every day. They had one meal and no next meal, and they quickly became skinny in bones. Luang didn't care at all. These guys had so many people's blood on their hands, they deserved it even if they starved to death. In order to increase the source of food, Luang also took the initiative to join the sea fishing mission. It's good weather again today. With the cool sea breeze blowing, Luang, wearing sunglasses, a t-shirt and shorts, sat down on the side railing of the boat and began his fishing life. Tap tap tap. Following a familiar sound of footsteps, a little guy in slippers carrying a big fishing rod found a suitable spot and sat down directly. Shanya quickly picked up the bait and swung it hard in the air, directly throwing the fishhook with the fishing line into the sea. Luang glanced at Shanya with a serious face from the corner of his eye. He found that this guy looked a little bit harsh on weekdays, but he became particularly serious once he started doing certain things. Just like now, as soon as he started to enter the fishing state, his whole energy and spirit became extremely focused. Can you still hold on? Shanya, can you adapt to the days at sea? Shanya, Luang, hey, I'm so sorry Sanji. Shanya frowned slightly and turned his head to look at Luang. What do you have to say? Luang's eyes showed a smile. Nothing, I just want to chat with my cute and handsome little brother Shanya, talk about life, and explore the true meaning of this world. Shanya. After hearing this, Shanya grimaced again and continued to concentrate on catching fish. This guy really doesn't take soft and hard advice, and doesn't let in oil or salt. Hey, how can we get closer and become a team like this? Seeing Shanya's appearance of cherishing words like gold, Luang couldn't help but have a headache. From the moment this guy got on the ship, he had been trying to find ways to improve his relationship with him. After all, he came up after he was convinced, not willingly, which is completely different from Xinolin. Luang didn't like to do things that forced others to do something difficult, so he was always looking for opportunities to chat with the little guy. It's a pity that this guy's mouth is like glue, and he can't open it no matter what. Even on the 7th day today, he is still a stranger to himself. At least you have to figure out who this guy's enemy is and what his dream is, otherwise he won't have any centripetal force. Luang was thinking Xiao Juju in his heart. Although he is not a pirate, it does not mean that he does not need partners, especially reliable and trusting partners. That's all, take your time. After thinking for a long time and still having no clue, Luang had no choice but to shake his head and continue to enjoy the joy of fishing. Not long after, Luang saw a group of seagulls circling and turning around his ship. Listening to the chirping of birds, Luang couldn't help but reveal a strange look in his eyes. He felt a strange aura approaching. Now he has already awakened the 3 colors of domineering, and they are all at the highest level. No enemy can escape his perception when they attack. Suddenly, a seagull suddenly swooped down from the sky in the most ferocious manner, and the direction of its attack was actually Shanya, who was concentrating on fishing. Seagulls are so fast, almost like the speed of sound. But just when this guy was about 3 meters away from Shanya, an invisible wave of air swept past. The next second, the suddenly crazy seagull's eyes turned white, its body stiffened, and it quickly fell directly from Shanya's eyes. Lu Wang looked indifferent. He had just activated Conqueror's domineering power in an instant. The sudden scene made Shanya retreat suddenly. At this moment, Lu Wang suddenly stood up and said to Shanya, "Shanya, please step back, an enemy is coming." Seeing Lu Wang's tall back, Shanya was stunned for a moment. Did he do it just now? "Gee, young man, you are quite domineering." With a burst of giggles, a man wearing a Marine colonel's cape, a pockmarked face, and sinister eyebrows suddenly fell from the sky. With a loud bang, the man stood directly on the deck. He twisted his neck and said with a grin, "Let me introduce myself, I am Colonel Lakin from the Marine base in Xiluobu village." Sarab village, isn't this Usopp's hometown? Such a thought passed through Lu Wang's head, and then he looked at Lakin calmly. He didn't believe that this dignified Colonel Marine would not go to the Three Treasures Palace for anything. Lu Wang glanced at Lakin and said calmly, "Did you control that seagull just now?" Lakin gently pinched the orchid finger with his right hand, pointed at Lu Wang, and chuckled, I am a pigeon fruit user. I just wanted to see who can defeat the Pirate Creek. It's a few kilograms and a few tails, and now it looks pretty good." Lu Wang. I thought he was such an awesome person, but as soon as he made this move, Lu Wang was instantly nauseated. What the hell is this? How could there be such a sissy person? But vomiting was vomiting, and Lu Wang still cared about the blow to Lakin. Lu Wang turned his wrist and said coldly, "Really? But do you know that because of this test, you almost scared my partner to death? How should this account be calculated?" Are you scared? You're not injured. There's nothing to worry about. You really love to joke. As Lakin said this, he walked towards the cabin in a familiar manner, but unexpectedly, Lu Wang had already flashed in front of him before he had taken a few steps. "I told you, you scared my partner, I want to settle this account." Before Lakin could speak, Lu Wang grabbed his collar with one hand and lifted it up without saying a word. "What are you going to do? I'm Captain Marine Lakin. If you dare to hit me." Wow. Before Lakin could finish speaking, a vicious fist suddenly hit his stomach. Ding. Congratulations on hitting Lakin, the user with pigeon fruit ability, and gained the pigeon fruit ability. The moment he heard the sound coming from the system, Lu Wang smiled. Finally encountered the first devil fruit, and it is also a fruit that can fly. Yes, now you can travel freely by sea, land and air. Lu Wang smiled slightly, but the smile only lasted for a second and then disappeared. Without saying a word, he put on a cold and indifferent expression again. Lu Wang said coldly to Lakin, "This first punch is to tell you, don't be too pretentious, otherwise you will be beaten into a fool." After saying this, Lu Wang punched him again. Lakin's eyes bulged again and he screamed again. "This second punch is to tell you that I, Lu Wang, am not afraid of anything, no matter it is a pirate or a marine, I will kill anyone I see displeased with," Lu Wang said while raising his third punch. "The last punch was for my partner. No matter who dares to attack my partner, it is equivalent to punching me." Wow. With the last scream, Lakin spit out a mouthful of bitter water, and then he knelt down holding his stomach. Shanya on the side was obviously also touched by Lu Wang's words and actions. He looked at Lu Wang's back with strange eyes and murmured to himself, "This guy. You." Lakin stretched out his orchid finger, as if he wanted to say something cruel. But after seeing Lu Wang's indifferent eyes, he shrank back from what he said. This guy is so cruel, scary, and domineering. As a Marine colonel, he had never been treated like this, bullied like this, and crushed so forcefully and unreasonably. But he felt bitter in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it. The man in front of him was obviously more powerful than he imagined. Not to mention Conqueror's domineering attitude just now, the moment the hand grabbed him, he found that he had lost the courage to resist. It's like facing a super devil, unable to resist even the slightest bit. This man's eyes were domineering and cold, like a dragon in the abyss, unfathomable and unshakable. Looking at Lakin who was lying limply on the ground, Lu Wang moved his wrists with a normal expression on his face. There is absolutely no expression of timidity, fear and worry that a Marine colonel should have. Just like a super pirate, I don't know what fear is. Lu Ang glanced at the trembling Lakin and said, "Okay, the account has been settled. Now you can talk about your purpose." Lakin, his face was full of bitterness. After receiving the news that Crick had been captured, Lakin thought it was a huge gain. He just thought that he could get there first, kill this unknown man, and then take Crick back to the world government as his military merit. As a devil fruit user with pigeon fruit ability, he can communicate with seagulls and thus discover Lu Ang's ship immediately. He originally thought that all this would be achieved effortlessly and that he would be able to gain military merit immediately. Because he used this method to blackmail many bounty hunters a long time ago. He hopes that he can use this method to rise through the ranks, reach the pinnacle of life, and marry Bai Fumei. But Lakin never expected that this time he would be given a big slap in the face for stealing the chicken. The unknown man in the news he got was actually Conqueror's domineering, and he also had the aura of a super pirate. He felt like a weak and helpless salted fish in front of Lu Ang with no pursuit, no ability. Let alone blackmailing those pirates in front of him. I'm afraid they don't even have the ability to stand in front of him. Don't you want to say it? In that case, go down and feed the fish. Lu Ang shook his head and grabbed Lakin's collar. Wait. When Lakin heard the word, feeding fish, he immediately became energetic and woke up in the blink of an eye. If you were really thrown into the sea by this guy, you would really be doomed. After eating the devil fruit, he is a landlubber. Once he enters the sea, he will be dead. Lu Ang. Looking at Lu Ang's sharp and domineering eyes, Lakin couldn't help but shrink his neck again. Well, I want to come, to pick up those pirates on your ship. Oh, that's great. Did you bring the bounty? Wait. Lu Ang scratched the back of his head. How much was the reward for Creek? His bounty is 17 million Baileys. At this moment, Shan Ya, who had been watching Lu Ang beside him, suddenly spoke. Lu Ang glanced at Shan Ya with a smile on his face, but saw this guy folding his hands on his chest, turning his head away, and making a very stinking look. Although Shan Ya still acted indifferent, this time he spoke for him, which showed that the iceberg between the two people began to melt. By the way, the bounty of 17 million Baileys, dear Mr. Colonel, have you brought the money as well? Lu Ang stretched out his hand and looked at Lakin with a bright face. Seeing Lu Ang reaching out for money, Lakin's face turned green. This requires a lot of money. Lousy has always been a chicken thief, how could he bring money here? But even though he said that, he didn't dare to say it, otherwise he might really be thrown down to feed the fishes. Lakin. Ahem, then, what? I was in such a hurry when I came out that I forgot to bring it with me. Lu Ang gave Lakin a meaningful look. He had already guessed that something was wrong with this guy, and it was just as he expected. I'm afraid this guy didn't come here to give a bounty, but to rob criminals, so he went to the Marine headquarters to claim the reward as his military merit. Lu Ang grinned and said, "It's okay. If that's the case, then I'll go with you to the Marine base. Anyway, we don't have anything to do now." Chapter 11. After hearing Lu Ang's words, Lakin's face turned dark. He knew that this time he failed to steal the chicken. Then, with Shinolin's full force in sailing, it took about 2 days to finally arrive at Xiluobu village. I saw the small houses filled with smoke, looked at the spacious village avenue, and smelled the fragrance coming from the nearby flower fields. The moment he landed, Lu Ang couldn't help but feel relaxed. It's the smell of this small country that fascinates me even more. Shan Ya glanced at Lu Ang and complained, "Weird." Lu Ang didn't care at all about this little guy who was just like his younger brother. Instead, he laughed and followed Lakin towards the Marine base. Along the way, Lakin's head was hanging down, like an old man without strength. I thought I could comfortably get another military award, but I didn't expect that I didn't get the military award and instead got myself involved. What a bad start today. Lakin was filled with bitterness, but there was nothing he could do about it. Who would have thought that after so many years of stealing chickens, he would actually be kicked out of trouble today? Such a result was beyond his wildest dreams. After walking a few hundred meters around the village's port, everyone soon saw an atmospheric and majestic marine base building located in front of them. Although the village is not big and cannot be said to be wealthy, this marine base is still very grand. This world government is really rich. Glancing at the marine base, Luang sighed inwardly. Not long after, the group arrived at Marine's base. After entering the marine base, Luang dragged the skinny pirate Admiral Creek, who was already hungry, and threw him on the ground. Go get the bounty, I'll wait for you here. Okay. Lakin nodded, and then said to his subordinates, hurry up and withdraw 1,780,000 Baileys from the treasury. The person in charge of keeping accounts was a young female sailor. She pushed up her gold-rimmed glasses and said, the purpose is to record the bounty payout, okay. Lakin waved his hand and said weakly, that's right, it's the bounty payout. The female sailor glanced at Lakin with a strange expression, then nodded and walked into the base. Not long after, she walked out with a box of Baileys. The female sailor walked up to Luang and said, sir, if it is convenient, please state your name. I need to do a simple registration here. Of course, my name is Luang, Aruba Luang. This is Luang's name in this world, so he didn't have any taboos and just reported it openly. The female sailor nodded and then handed the box to Luang politely. Okay, Mr. Luang, this is your 17 million bounty, please count it and keep it. After Luang took it, he opened it immediately. 17 million Baileys, this is not a small amount, he will definitely have to live up to it. After Luang put away the box, he glanced at Wright and said, okay, then hurry up and have the pirates on the ship be moved off the ship as well. Okay. Wright nodded and bowed as if meeting his superior, and said to his subordinates, quick, send 3 teams over immediately. As you command. Soon, with the help of a large group of Marines, they captured hundreds of pirates on the ship one by one. Looking at the empty ship in the sea in an instant, Luang couldn't help but look relaxed. Fortunately, these pirates are relatively hardy, otherwise they would have starved to death during the 10 days' journey. Luang, let's go. After staying on the boat for so long, it's time to go for a walk on land. Shinolan nodded. Okay, sir. Luang, call the captain. Shinolan, yes, sir. Hearing this, Luang was speechless. He rolled his eyes at Shinolan. Obviously, this guy can't change his tune. Forget it, just be the gentleman. Shanya picked a grass stem at some point, bit it in his mouth, and followed Luang carelessly. There are pirates out there, and they're here to increase their presence. Kill him. You liar, don't run away. You are cheating and abducting every day, let's see if Lousy doesn't beat you to death. At this moment, a roaring and cursing sound suddenly came from a distance. Then Luang saw a man with a long nose and a brown bag running towards him while laughing. Usopp. At this time, Luang finally remembered that this seemed to be Usopp's hometown. Ha ha ha, come after me, you fools. Usopp laughed and turned his head to mock the villagers, making faces from time to time, looking extremely proud. Snort. At this moment, Yamaga suddenly showed a hint of disdain in his eyes, and just as Usopp was about to rush past him, he stretched out his right foot. Ouch! Usopp suddenly felt an imbalance in his body, and then he fell hard and fell to the ground. After a while, the villagers caught up with them in surprise. Soon, various villagers who had obtained brooms and sticks greeted Usopp unceremoniously. Within 2 seconds, Usopp was beaten with a black nose and a swollen face. Humph, let's see if you dare to lie to others next time. Lousy will beat you once if you lie to me. Be careful. The villagers glared at Usopp, who was lying motionless on the ground, and left cursing. This guy is still the same as always, weak and playful. Luang shook his head, and then pulled Usopp up. Shanya glanced at Luang and said disdainfully, nothing. Oh, who is causing trouble? Luang glanced at Shanya, and that meaningful look instantly made Shanya lower his head with guilt. If Usopp fell down by himself, Luang might not pay attention. After all, this guy is a habitual seeker of death, so he deserves to be beaten. But whether he fell down because of Yamaya is another story. Shanya is my partner, and of course I am responsible for his actions. Even though his kick was not noticed by others. Thank you. Usopp held up 2 big black smoke rings and thanked Luang. Luang shook his head, and then gave Usopp a 10,000 yuan Bailey. This is compensation for you. It was my person who tripped you just now. It is an apology to you. Usopp looked shocked when he saw Bailey holding $10,000 in his hand. This is the first time he has received such a large denomination of money. After Lu Wang saw Usopp accept it, he waved his hand and turned to leave. Let's go, see you later. Looking at the 10,000 yuan Bailey in his hand and then at Lu Wang's back, Usopp couldn't help but murmured, actually, it's not impossible to trip me again. Halfway through, looking at the endless rice fields, Shinolin closed his eyes, raised his chest and raised his head and took a deep breath. Wow, the smell here is so similar to that of Windmill Village. Even the air has the freshness of grass. Lu Wang looked at Shinolin with strange eyes. Huh, you also know Windmill Village. As he spoke, his eyes glanced at the plump snow-white color inadvertently. That's weird, is it my imagination? This guy seems to be getting plumper. Shinolin opened her eyes, glanced at the flat fields in the distance, and said with a bright smile, yes, my grandma is from Windmill Village. I went to grandma when I was very young. I lived there for about 3 years, and then I followed my parents back to Shieldstown. However, even though it was only just over 3 years, it is the best memory of my life. Lu Wang smiled and said, haha, I grew up in the village when I was a child. Although my life was not rich, it was also my happiest time. Shinolin was a little surprised. Huh. Sir, is your hometown also in the countryside? Absolutely, my sister and I often went to herd cows when we were young. While we were herding, we fished, caught cicadas, dug out birds' nests, and roasted sweet potatoes. That was also the best memory in my life. Quote. As he spoke, Lu Wang's eyes flickered, as if he had returned to the carefree days 10 or 20 years ago. Shanya listened to the two people's chat and remained silent. He just kicked the stone with his foot. One after another, each seemingly inconspicuous stone instantly turned into an extremely fierce killing weapon under his feet. Boy, did you do this on purpose? Suddenly, a cold snort sounded from not far away. Feeling unusual hostility, Lu Wang suddenly stopped discussing life with Shinolin and looked in the direction of the sound. Soon, at the end of his gaze, he saw a blonde girl in a wheelchair approaching slowly. Behind the wheelchair is a stern man wearing butler's clothing. The moment he saw this man's face, Lu Wang raised his eyebrows. Isn't this the pirate Crow who has been lurking around Miss Kaya for many years, pretending to be a butler? He didn't expect that he would meet several familiar old faces from One Piece while wandering around. Lu Wang raised his lips slightly. It seems that another guy offering bounty is here. At this time, Shanya also looked at Lu Wang in surprise. You also know him? Lu Wang was confused by Shanya's question. Ah, do you also know his identity? Shanya crossed his arms and chewed a grass stem while saying disdainfully, ha, I know all the pirates who have bounties on them. Lu Wang was shocked by these words. He didn't expect that this seemingly small guy actually knew so much. Shanya said expressionlessly, don't be too busy looking at me. I just looked at the pirate bounty catalog. Before this, you should think about how to deal with this guy first. Crow looked at Shanya with a cold face and said, kid, you were the one who kicked the rock just now. Hearing Crow's tone, Kaya quickly said, Krabatel, don't be like this, he is just a child, you can easily scare him. Crow shook his head and said, Miss, you are too kind. Such a wild child should be taught a corresponding lesson, otherwise he will become even more lawless in the future. After hearing the word, wild child, Shanya immediately became serious. You can call him a fool, stupid, or a waste, but the most unbearable thing is being called a wild child. His expression turned cold and he immediately took steps, obviously preparing to attack Crow. At this moment, Lu Wang suddenly stopped Shanya. Shanya said, don't stop me, or I'll beat you away too. Lu Wang smiled and said, you were wrong, I am not stopping you, but... Having said this, he looked at Crow and said, before beating this man, it would be more meaningful to expose his identity first. After hearing the words, revealing one's identity, Crow's expression obviously changed. Did this guy see my disguise? It's impossible. I disguised myself so well that even Marine Colonel Wright couldn't recognize me. How could he see through it at a glance? Crow was extremely worried. He had been planning for many years to monopolize Kaya's property. No matter what, he must not make any mistakes at this juncture. For Miss Kaya's sake, I won't argue with you. Crow glanced at Luang and everyone, then changed direction, pushed Kaya to the other side and left quickly. Seeing that Crow had walked some way out in the blink of an eye, Shanya couldn't help but feel annoyed. He shouted at Luang, "You chase me, don't you want to expose me?" Luang shook his head. He looked at Shanya and smiled, "You are still too young. Did you see that this guy originally wanted to get angry? Why did he suddenly change his mind at the last moment when he heard what I said he wanted to expose? Do you want to stop pursuing it?" Shanya said coldly, "He feels guilty." Luang nodded. "Yes, so now we just need to follow slowly. When this guy is about to put away the stolen goods, appear directly and catch one of them. That will be enough to determine his identity. In this way, this guy's sister Kaya won't stop us just because we take action." Shanya looked puzzled. "Why should we care about that weak woman? We can just catch her. There are so many things." Hearing this, Luang couldn't help but laugh. "We can't be so overbearing in our work. This girl is sick. We can't risk other people's lives just for the bounty or to capture Crow. In this way, and what's the difference between a cruel and cold-blooded pirate?" After listening to Luang's words, Shanya fell silent. "Let's go, don't let that little gangster take advantage of him." Following Luang's greeting, Shinolin and Shanya nodded and followed quickly. After returning to the villa, Crow said to Kaya, "Miss, you can look at the flowers here. The weather seems to be getting colder. I'll go inside and get you a shawl." Kaya looked at Crow with soft eyes and said, "Excuse me, Krabatar, you are always so considerate." Crow bowed slightly. "Miss, don't say that, this is what I should do. I'll go first. If you need anything, remember to call me right away." After saying that, Crow smiled and turned towards the villa. At this moment, 3 figures quietly came under the villa. Shanya said, "When are you going to take action?" Luang smiled and said, "Look at me." As soon as he finished speaking, Luang activated the devil fruit ability he had just obtained and transformed into a little pigeon and flew over from the balcony of the villa. This is the power of a devil fruit. Shanya was stunned when he saw Luang turned into a little pigeon in a blink of an eye. He never expected that this extremely powerful man was actually a devil fruit user. With his domineering skills and devil fruit abilities, I don't know how many trump cards he has. Watching the little pigeon fly into the balcony, Shanya was confused. Shinolin also looked shocked. He never expected that the captain he was following was actually a devil fruit user. At the same time, Luang, who flew in from the balcony, soon discovered Crow's sneaky figure. Crow took his own weapons out of a room, put them in a black bag, and then walked down the stairs. Luang, who was standing on the window, showed a smile. "Do you want to sneak out through the back door?" Soon he flew out again and came behind Kaya, transforming into a human again. "Miss Kaya, we meet again." Kaya looked surprised. "Ah, you. You are not the one just now." Luang smiled and said, "Yes, it's me. You may not believe some of the things I have said, so I hope to take you to witness the facts." Kaya is as white as jade and as beautiful as a flower, with a trace of doubt on her face. "What is the truth? Your butler is not an ordinary person, but a pirate, and you will see the evidence soon." As Luang spoke, he smiled and pushed Kaya towards the back door of the villa. At this time, Shanya and Shinolin also saw Luang, who had turned into a human again, and followed him without saying a word. "Don't say anything and follow me to the back door." Then, the group of people turned a corner and walked along the grass of the villa to the back door. Almost at the same time they arrived at the back door, the closed white wooden door slowly opened. With a creak, the wooden door opened, and then a familiar figure appeared in front of everyone. "It's not Crow who's here, who is it?" At this time, Crow was holding a black bag in his hand. He was about to walk out and looked at Luang and everyone in confusion. Why are they all here? And Kaya. The scene in front of him immediately made Crow stunned. He never expected that in order to find a place to put away his weapons, he would end up being caught on the spot by these people. Crow swallowed and said, "But, Miss Kaya, weren't you admiring the flowers in front? Why are you with them?" At this time, his mind was also spinning rapidly, trying to find any way to excuse himself. Kaya did not immediately answer Crow's words, but looked at the black bag in Crow's hand, bit her red lips, and said, "Krabatel, are you really the bad guy they say you are?" Until this second, Kaya still couldn't believe it. Because this man took great care of her and had always been extremely gentle and attentive. He couldn't be described as a bad guy at all. No matter what, she didn't want to believe the fact that Krabatar was a bad person. Before Crow could speak, Luang grinned and said, "Can you tell when you open the bag?" He knew that Crow was a pirate with the title of Intelligent Star, and he had to cut through the mess quickly and expose his identity immediately. "Call." Crow took a deep breath and glanced at Kaya, showing a trace of pity. "Miss Kaya, do you know? Sometimes, dying alone is an extremely happy thing. Why do you have to cooperate with these outsiders to expose my identity? In this way, only it will make our relationship very awkward." As Crow said this, he slowly took out a pair of finger gloves containing 5 sharp swords from the bag. As if he was doing something very ordinary, he put on 2 finger cots in front of the stunned Kaya. You are really a pirate." Seeing this scene, Kaya was stunned for a moment, showing an expression of disbelief. Crow pushed up his glasses with his finger cots and said in an indifferent tone, "Sorry, Miss Kaya, I have been hiding it for so long. My real name is actually Crow, and I am the captain of the Crow Pirates." While talking, Crow also took out a small bamboo tube from his arms. Then in front of everyone, a colorful mortar of firework was shot into the sky. "Do you know what this is?" Crow glanced at everyone and smiled cruelly. "This is the summoning signal of my Black Cat pirates. Soon, my men will attack this village. None of you can escape. Okay, since your identity has been exposed, there is no need to talk nonsense anymore." Luang walked up to Kaya casually. He couldn't make any mistakes at this time. Others may not know it, but he is very aware of this Crow's ability. His spoon dance is like a Marine 6 style shave, it's extremely ferocious. When Luffy hit him, he was injured and covered in blood. He had to fight quickly. Luang clenched his fist and said, "Are you going to kneel down and beg for mercy and go to Marine with me, or are you going to have your legs broken by me and then give it to Marine?" Crow never expected that the man in front of him would be so arrogant. He would kneel down and beg for mercy if he disagreed, and he burst out laughing uncontrollably in an instant. "I thought I was already very arrogant, but I didn't expect you to be even more arrogant than me. This is really interesting. Wow." Before Crow could finish speaking, he instantly felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Then the whole person's knees softened and he knelt down directly. Ding! Congratulations on defeating Crow, gaining strength +15. Listening to the sound of the system, Luang shook his head. He didn't expect that the strength this guy added was actually not as good as Crick. Looking at Crow who was kneeling on the ground, holding his abdomen and shivering, Luang said lightly, "You talk too much." Crow shook his head and looked at the man in front of him in disbelief. He never thought that as the captain of the Crow Pirates and a great pirate with a bounty of 16 million, he would be defeated by an inexplicable man in a single encounter. This humiliation, this anger, this unwillingness made his face instantly become extremely distorted. "After planning for so many years, we lost like this, with this tone. He can't swallow it no matter what." Crow gritted his teeth, looked at Luang with shock, anger and fear and said, "Who are you?" Luang smiled and said, "Me, I'm just an ordinary, handsome bounty hunter." Shanya glanced at Luang. "You can omit the words, handsome and handsome, next time." Luang. Hearing what Crow said, Kaya looked disappointed, her eyes turned red and she said, "Why are you doing this? Isn't our family treating you badly?" Kaya looks like a pear blossom with spring rain. Anyone who sees it will be heartbroken, soft-hearted, and pity her. But at this moment, Crow turned his head, glanced at Kaya with a sneer on his face, and said, "So what if you are good to me, will you give me your property? Does all your wealth have anything to do with me? Do not make jokes." The series of questions made Kaya tremble all over and almost fainted. At this moment, another servant suddenly came back from outside. Seeing Kaya's appearance, he immediately ran into the villa in fright. Not long after, the servant came to Kaya with a bottle of hot water and a box of medicine. "Hurry, Miss Kaya, take this medicine." Under the service of the maid, Kaya immediately took the pills. It didn't take long for her pale face to gradually turn rosy. Luang said to the servant, "Bring her in, I will handle this guy." This time, Kaya didn't say anything, She just glanced at Crow with a disappointed look on her face, and then let the servant push her into the villa. After seeing Kaya enter the villa, Luang patted Crow's shoulder out of boredom and said, "Let's go, old iron, you won't be conscious if you continue to struggle." Crow sighed. He glanced at Luang with a look of reluctance and said, "Even if I, Crow, admit defeat today, can you tell me your name before handing me over to Marine?" "Want revenge?" Luang grinned and said without hesitation, "Aruba Luang." Later, under the escort of Luang and 3 others, Crow was finally sent to Wright's Marine base with great reluctance. When he learned that the criminal captured by Luang was actually the famous Captain Jaduoxinglo who had disappeared for a long time, Wright was shocked again. He understands the cunning and power of Jaduoxinglo better than anyone else. Although the bounty is 1 million Baileys lower than that of Crick, it is far more difficult to capture him than Crick. The word, Ji-duo-shing, is not a wasted name. Marine has fought against Crow many times, and has suffered countless losses from him. It is precisely because of his repeated failures with Crow that his title of Smart Star continues to grow far and wide. However, Wright did not expect that this resourceful pirate strategist, who was even defeated by Marine, would be captured by the unknown Luang today. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Wright would never have believed it. But after repeated identification of facial features, Wright finally confirmed that the Crow in front of him was indeed Captain Crow who had disappeared for a long time. "Go to the treasury and withdraw 16 million belly. As you command." Soon, another box full of bounty was delivered to Luang's hands again. Luang opened the box, quickly checked it, and then closed it again. "Old brother Wright, next time I catch a pirate, I'll come find you again." After saying goodbye to Wright happily, Luang walked out of the Marine base in a relaxed mood again. Walking behind Luang, Shanya couldn't help but look strange when looking at the back of Na Se. In less than half a day, he made more than 10 million belly. Isn't this guy's luck too great? He didn't expect that not long after Luang captured the Pirate Creek, he would capture another Captain Crow of almost the same level in the blink of an eye. This kind of efficiency and speed would make pirates all over the world tremble. Although there was a sense of shitty luck in it, Shanya had to admit that Luang's luck was really overwhelming. This 16 million bounty is almost the same as something picked up on the road. But Xinuolin doesn't think so. In her opinion, this shows that Luang is a true good man who hates evil as much as he hates it and is a heroic and righteous man. It is because of such a personality that he is particularly sensitive to the smell of bad guys, and that is why he immediately discovered Crow's anomaly. Luang, who was walking in front, had no extra mood to speculate on the thoughts of the 2 people behind him. At this moment, he was immersed in a happy mood. Blue sky, green lake, this is my home. Luang was so happy that he even hummed a song uncontrollably. After all, this huge sum of money came so easily and so quickly that it was difficult for him to be unhappy. Adding this sum of money, he now has more than 40 million Baileys. Even if you buy a large villa like the one in Kaya's home, it is definitely more than enough. He was even thinking about building a villa here, planting flowers and plants here, and entering retirement mode. But this idea only crossed his mind for a moment, and was rejected by him in the blink of an eye. He has not forgotten his very important purpose in coming to this world. He wants to change Ace's fate, and he must not let this character who is as handsome and charming as himself be killed by the Red Dog. Although Red Dog prides himself on being righteous and indeed hates evil as much as he hates it, his arrogant look made Luang particularly unhappy. No matter what, he will punch Akainu hard several times during the war, and then rescue Ace in front of him. He must let this Red Dog feel what it means to be speechless. What is frustration? What is helplessness? What does it mean to be unhappy? What a pain in the balls. Even if he might not be able to kill Red Dog, he would make this guy sick for the rest of his life. Luang, who killed Crow, did not leave immediately, but stayed in Broxy village again. There are 2 reasons for staying. One is that the Crow Black Cat pirates will definitely attack the village after receiving the signal. This is another good opportunity for him to harvest the bounty. He did not forget that there is a hypnosis master in the Black Cat pirates, Zhangao. This guy's bounty is estimated to be around 10 million belly, which is not a small sum. Another reason is that he also wants to give Exonorin and Shanya some time to relax. After all, life at sea is relatively boring, and occasionally letting two people go out for a walk on land is also a kind of adjustment. Haha, brothers, come here and rob this village. After that, you can meet up with Captain Crow. With a burst of wild laughter, a group of pirates swarmed in from a port. Come on, I want both money and women, ha ha ha. Hey, we can finally rob again, Lousy's knife is already thirsty. No one wants to rob me, Lousy wants the first drop of blood today. Standing on the only passage into the village, Luang and the others had been waiting for a long time. Seeing a group of black dots approaching quickly below, Yamaga showed contempt. Is this the Black Cat Pirates? Why are they so weak? If another little brat had said that, Luang would definitely give him a shudder and let him know the truth about pretending to be struck by lightning. But it's different when this sentence comes out of Shanya's mouth. This guy's kicking force is enough to easily crush rocks. Although it is not as strong as red-footed Tetsuo's footsteps on steel, it is still very impressive. Haha, don't say that. After all, I have a captain with a bounty of more than 10 million. Luang said as he walked out with his hands in his pockets. He was ready to take action. Humph, don't try to be in the limelight. At this moment, Shanya suddenly spat out the grass stems in his mouth and jumped directly in front of Luang. He crossed his arms and said coldly, "This time, I will personally beat them away." Hearing this, Luang couldn't help but smile. "Okay, I'll leave the limelight to you this time," Shinolin said with a worried look. "Shanya, those are pirates who kill without batting an eye. Can you? TCH, these guys are just the pirates who are highly calculated and praised by Master Hypnosis who are on the bounty list. The rest are just like ants. What's the problem?" Shan Yayu showed his disdain, then took a step forward and started to meet the pirates rushing below. Shinolin looked at Luang with some worry. "Sir, won't you help?" "Don't worry, this guy is far stronger than you think. These guys are no match, of course." Looking at the kind-hearted Shinolin, Luang smiled and said, "If there is danger, I will take action as soon as possible." Soon, Yamaga had a close encounter with the Black Cat Pirates. In an instant, Shanya used the fastest and sharpest flame kicks to knock the 5 or 6 pirates who arrived first to the ground. A little kid actually dares to be so arrogant. Let's see if Lousy doesn't hack you to death. Seeing this, the other pirates roared and rushed forward, raising their swords and slashing at Yamaya. But Shanya looks small, but his strength, speed and reaction are top-notch. He swayed and dodged, and immediately escaped the attack of more than a dozen pirates. Shoulder, back meat, super sausage burger. A few kicks were as fast as lightning and as fierce as tigers and leopards, and a dozen bandits were kicked to the point where their heads were bloody and their hands and feet were broken. In the blink of an eye, the pirates began to wail and scream incessantly. Seeing Shanya constantly kicking out all kinds of cool and handsome flying kicks and horizontal kicks, Luang couldn't help but feel a trace of familiar nostalgia in his eyes. It's really strange. The more I look at it, the more I look like a smaller version of Sanji. Shinolin, who was still worried about Shanya, couldn't help but look shocked when he saw Shanya kicking a child like an adult bullying a child. Is he actually so strong? Then, under the gaze of Luang and Shinolin, in less than half an hour, hundreds of members of the Black Cat Pirates fell to the ground. The only one standing is Master Hypnosis wearing pink glasses and holding a sharp ring in his hand. Kudos. Kid, you actually knocked down all my subordinates. Zangao's face was trembling with anger. As soon as he received the captain's signal, he summoned the crew and prepared to launch a raid on Zailuobu village. Although this village is not big, you can still grab a wave of treasures. Unexpectedly, before his plan was completed, a green-haired kid suddenly appeared to disrupt the situation. In almost less than half an hour, all the members of the Black Cat Pirates were knocked to the ground. Seeing this scene, Zangao felt like his chest was going to explode with anger. Shanya shook his head at this time, spread his hands, and sighed softly. "Hey, don't blame me. The main reason is that they are too weak. Really, they are so weak that I don't even know how to describe it." Hearing this, Luang couldn't help but give Shanya a thumbs up. "You are really a fighter who is pretending to be awesome." Shinolin looked at Luang in confusion. What does pretending mean?" Luang touched his chin. "Well, it's hard to explain. Anyway, you will gradually understand in the future. Seeing Shanya belittle and insult his subordinates so unceremoniously, Zhang Gao immediately went crazy. You brat, I want you to pay the price. With a roar, Zhang Gao threw his sharpest silver ring weapon towards Shanya without saying a word. I have to say, Zhang Gao's silver ring is really scary. The silvery white light flashed in an instant, like a flash of light, and its speed was far faster than that of a bow and arrow. Shanya did not raise his eyebrows, he narrowed his eyes, stepped back to the left, and quickly dodged the Yinwan offensive with a bend of his body. Unexpectedly, Zhang Gao threw the second silver ring again at this time. Go to hell. The speed of the second silver ring is actually twice as fast as the first one. Moreover, he still aimed at the gap where Shanya just dodged the first silver ring. Obviously, Zhang Gao's eyesight and reaction are also top-notch. Shanya's eyes were solemn, he jumped up suddenly and launched a flying kick. Kang! The right foot containing the power of fire kicked the silver ring in the air and kicked the flying weapon back again. The moment he landed, looking at Zhang Gao who was dodging the silver ring in embarrassment, Shanya clapped his hands and sneered, "It's not that bad, right?" After finally dodging his own weapon, the somewhat embarrassed Zhang Gao didn't panic at all. Instead, he smiled evilly and said, "Hey, is it really not that good? Hey, what a fool." With a gentle sigh, Lu Ang, who had been watching, finally moved at this moment. When Shanya was confused, Lu Ang had already come behind him. And he stretched out his left hand and caught the silver ring whirling from behind at an extremely dangerous moment. Shanya, who noticed the strange movement, looked back and discovered that a silver ring had appeared in Lu Ang's hand at some point. Shanya, who was extremely witty, immediately understood what was going on and broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing this scene, Zan was so excited that he jumped to his feet. Another fool, how dare you interfere with my plan? Okay, your captain has been sent to Marine by me, so don't talk nonsense and just go ahead and capture him. Lu Ang said as he put his pockets in his pockets and walked quickly towards Zhang Gao. HMPH, do you think I only have 2 silver rings? Seeing Lu Ang approaching, Zhang Gao took out 4 silver rings from his arms without saying a word. Seeing the 4 silver rings, Lu Ang nodded, "Oh, I know your true identity." Zhang Gao was stunned for a moment, then he supported his waist and said with a proud smile, "Haha, do you finally know how powerful I am? Yes, Laozi is the famous hypnosis master Zhang Gao. Let me tell you my bounty, no 3 million, not 5 million, not 8 million, but 9 million Baileys, how about it, are you scared? I tell you, wow." Before Zhang Gao could finish his words, he immediately received a solid punch from Lu Ang. Looking at Zhang Gao who knelt down in an instant, Lu Ang said disdainfully, "Aren't you just a juggler if you are afraid of a hammer?" Ding! Congratulations on reaching the level of Hypnosis Master. You gain Strength +7. Hypnosis Ability +10. Hearing the prompt tone coming from the system at the same time, Lu Ang couldn't help but look surprised. He didn't expect that after killing this guy, he not only gained strength, but also gained his hypnosis ability, which was a bit interesting. Although this ability doesn't look very good, it seems to be good for interrogating enemies at critical moments. After killing Zhang Gao, Lu Ang dragged him back to the marine base again. Wright was drinking afternoon tea and playing office games with his plump female subordinate in his arms. Just when I was playing with great interest, I heard the news of Lu Ang's arrival. Wright, who was so hot in the last second, immediately shivered. Without saying a word, he pushed away the beautiful and plump female subordinate and came down as quickly as possible. "Hey, Mr. Lu Ang, you're here again." Wright rubbed his palms and came to Lu Ang with an apologetic smile on his face. Without saying a word, Lu Ang threw Zhang Gao, whose limbs were weak in pain, in front of Wright. This guy is also offering a reward, please confirm it." After seeing Zhang Gao, Wright was stunned for a moment. Isn't this guy from the Black Cat Pirates? Why was he captured by Lu Ang? At this time, Wright really wanted to become Lu Ang's disciple. In less than a month, he captured 3 pirates with bounty on his head. If this was replaced by military merit, wouldn't his position continue to rise? After confirming Zhang Gao's identity, Wright immediately ordered his subordinates to go to the vault to collect the corresponding bounty. The bounty is correct, goodbye. After getting the 9 million Baileys, Luang didn't want to say any more nonsense. He casually said goodbye and turned around to leave. He didn't know that just as he was leaving, Wright looked at his back with such envy and jealousy. Shanya said, "By the way, let's go buy some earthy flavor, otherwise we will have uneven nutrition if we always eat seafood." Luang had no objection at all to the words of the ship's chief chef and nutritionist, and immediately raised his hands in agreement. And for Shinolan, who likes food, he naturally agrees even more. Then the three of them spent a lot of money in the village, buying at least a month's worth of local flavor and various fruits and vegetables. After the purchase was almost complete, Luang and Shanya walked towards their big ship holding a pile of food. But he didn't expect that he had just walked out of the village and was about to get on the boat when he saw two familiar figures stepping into the village. These two people are Luffy and Zoro. This plot goes so fast. Luang, who met these two people from a distance, did not take the initiative to greet them, but smiled and then returned to his ship. Whether it was Zoro, Sanji, or Usopp, he had seen them all, but he had never really gotten close to any of them. It's not that he doesn't want to recruit them, but these are the characters assigned to the protagonist by some fields. It's really meaningless for him to step in and change the plot abruptly. It's better to find some interesting characters and interesting new people. Take your own other path instead of following the plot all over again. Only in this way can you have the fun of adventure. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too boring to just follow the original plot? Luang, let's go, the next goal is to find our doctor. Shinolan, yes, sir. Luang, call the captain. Shinolan, yes, sir. Luang, Shanya. Soon their ship was in motion again. Luang didn't know what the next stop was, so he could just move forward as he pleased. After resting in the village for a few days, Shinolan began to strengthen weight-bearing training as soon as he returned to the ship. As if to make up for the lost amount of special training, her original training time was directly increased to 20 hours. Except for 3 hours of sleep and 1 hour of eating time, the rest of the time was devoted to special training without reservation. Even Shanya was frightened by Shinolan's fierceness. But in line with the idea that men cannot be inferior to women, he gritted his teeth and actually extended his special training time. With this fierce blessing, after a month passed, Shinolan forcibly increased the weight-bearing strength to 180 pounds. This is far beyond the limit of what an ordinary man can bear. Obviously, Shinolan really used his perseverance to forcefully unleash his potential. But this kind of power is far from reaching Luang's requirements. In his opinion, it requires at least 7 levels of Zoro's power. In this way, learning swordsmanship can truly get twice the result with half the effort. Therefore, at Luang's request, Shinolan once again increased the weight-bearing special training. While supervising the two people's special training, Luang also remembered something. By the way, I even forgot to get myself a sword. As a great swordsman, how can I do without a good sword? Luang made up his mind that the next time he returns to land, he must go to the weapons store to carefully select a weapon that he can use. While Shinolan increased the weight training, Shanya was not to be outdone and took the initiative to ask for more weight. Luang was naturally happy about this. He found that as the two of them spent time together, the guy became more and more willing to communicate with him. Even sometimes during special training, I am willing to talk to myself occasionally if I have something I don't understand. Although there is still a long way to go before the relationship between close friends and close friends, this sign of improvement makes Luang extremely happy. Because what he is looking for is not just a simple employee, but a partner, a friend, a brother, and a family-like existence. Early in the morning, Luang had just woken up from his sleep when he heard a burst of mechanical sounds coming from the cabin. Then he stretched himself and slowly walked out of the door. When he came to the exclusive restaurant, he saw 7 or 8 delicious breakfasts already displayed on the beautiful and exquisite crystal dining table. These breakfasts include sandwiches containing eggs, shrimp and vegetables, delicious ham made from local pork, seafood porridge, crab rolls, milk, and various after-dinner desserts. In addition, there are bursts of fragrant smell coming from the kitchen on the other side. With his index finger twitching, Luang stretched out his hand to grab the delicious-looking crab roll without saying a word. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a cold snort shocked him. "Wash your hands, brush your teeth, and come back for breakfast. The voice was none other than Shanya, who was busy in the kitchen. Ahem, no, I just had a look, just a look. Lu Wang swallowed, slowly took back his right hand, and then obediently went to the bathroom and started washing up. At this time, Shinolin, who had just come out of another bathroom, couldn't help but look at Lu Wang, who was brushing his teeth with a funny look. This captain is so strange. Sometimes he is so mature that he is as reassuring as a backer. But why do you act like a child sometimes, leaving people speechless? After washing up, Lu Wang quickly returned to the dining table, and at this time, the breakfast had become 12 different styles. Looking at the rich breakfast, Lu Wang moved his index fingers without saying a word and picked up the crab rolls he had been coveting for a long time with his chopsticks. Looking at the golden crab meat roll and smelling the fragrant smell, Lu Wang opened his mouth and took a bite without saying a word. In an instant, an indescribable deliciousness spread in your mouth. Holy shit, shit, can this crab meat be so delicious? Lu Wang felt that all the cells in his body were dancing, the blood in his body was boiling, and his whole body was so happy that he almost danced after smelling the chicken. The tenderness with a hint of sweetness, the warm feeling that surged up after entering the abdomen, made him couldn't help shouting, "It's so delicious." Shanya glanced at Lu Wang, but a look of pride flashed across his seemingly disdainful face. I just like guys like you who have never seen the world. Shinolin was also amused by Lu Wang's exaggerated performance, and she was smiling from ear to ear throughout the breakfast. But this is no wonder, Lu Wang, because Shanya's craftsmanship is really invincible. Any seemingly inconspicuous side dish can taste perfect. Even Lu Wang, who had eaten all over the country and enjoyed a lot of delicious food, could not help but be shocked, admired and surrendered by his delicious food. Soon, a delicious breakfast was completely wiped out in Lu Wang's crazy cooking mode. Shanya and Shinolin were equally satisfied with their meals, with round bellies. After finishing the meal, Lu Wang slowly walked to the deck holding a pirate bounty catalog he bought from right before leaving. Pulling out the recliner, he fell down and landed directly on the recliner specially customized for him in the most comfortable posture. Looking at the two people doing various preparatory exercises on the deck while waiting for the food to be digested, Lu Wang showed a smile. These two people are very conscious. Lu Wang inadvertently glanced at Shinolin's full chest and couldn't help but nodded slightly. This guy was getting more and more substantial. No, what are you thinking about? Reading. Lu Wang coughed twice as if no one else was around, then opened the pirate bounty catalog and began to read leisurely. The days on the boat are very ordinary, but occasionally there are little surprises in the ordinary. For example, Lu Wang sometimes catches super sea fish. One fish can weigh more than 100 kilograms. At times like this, the three of them would often consider holding a celebration party to add a little happiness to this long journey. Of course, you are not so lucky every time. Sometimes, Lu Wang would also catch some strange things, such as clay pots, seaweed, women's personal belongings, etc. Whenever this happens, Shinolin will look at him strangely, making Lu Wang's face turn red and embarrassed. Soon, another month passed. At this time, Shinolin had increased his strength to a full 250 pounds. Such rapid growth is inseparable from her almost crazy special training. In addition, the nutritional combination of Shanya also contributes a lot. While Shinolin's strength increased, Shanya also gained a lot. He found that the weight on his legs and feet now reached 500 pounds. Attacking an enemy with such powerful kicking skills would probably be enough to easily kick an ordinary person into pieces. But this is not enough. Shanya's goal is to make his legs and feet reach the speed of light one day, and at the same time be strong enough to kick a mountain apart with one kick. So, he gritted his teeth and continued to persevere without hesitation. Lu Wang was also very pleased with this. If we continue at this pace, I'm afraid these two people will be able to break through to 1,000 pounds in less than a year. When he reaches 1,000 pounds, Lu Wang is ready to officially start teaching Shinolin's sword skills. As for Shanya, if he is interested, Lu Wang can also consider teaching him. After all, in his heart, he no longer regarded these two people as outsiders. Letting them grow further and become stronger as soon as possible is what he wants to see most. After all, the world of One Piece is cruel and dangerous, and he never knows when danger will come. Although he can be said to be at the top of One Piece now, who knows if one day he will accidentally fail to take care of his partners. Let them suffer unexpected disasters. Therefore, the best way is to let them grow up and become strong enough to protect themselves. Luffy's companions were not strong at the beginning, but didn't they all become strong men in their own right later on? After eating a delicious breakfast, Luang came to the deck again. He took a few deep breaths into the sea breeze, and then spit it out hard. Cool. The salty and cold sea breeze refreshed Luang's chest, and he couldn't help shouting. Huh, that's. Just after shouting, Luang suddenly focused his eyes because he saw a group of black spots appearing in the distance. He quickly walked to the bow of the ship where the telescope was installed, and took a closer look. Seeing this, he couldn't help but raise his brows, and couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. Today is such a good day. It turned out that the black spots he saw were two groups of pirate ships from different forces. At this time, the pirates behind seemed to be chasing the one in front. Judging from the distance, it would take less than an hour for the pirate ship behind them to catch up. Of these two pirate ships, Luang only knew one, which was the pirate group from the back. The flag of the pirate ship is a clown with a red nose. Obviously, this is the Buggy Pirates, the funny people in One Piece. The other ship was a white skull with flying dragons all around, which made a very weak impression on Luang. He was probably a relatively unknown little pirate, so he didn't have much of an impression. Buggy Pirate Ship. Looking at the pirate ship getting closer and closer in front of him, Buggy put his hands on his hips and let out an extremely arrogant laugh. Ha ha ha, hurry up and catch up. Use all your power to catch up. I'm going to rob a thief today. The animal trainer Mochi and the lion Licky kept twisting their butts and clapped their hands and encouraged, catch up, come on, come on. Swordsman Kabaji crossed his arms and looked proud. But at this moment, one of his subordinates suddenly shouted, Captain Buggy, an unknown large ship appeared ahead. Hearing the voice of his men, Buggy immediately jumped off the bow and grabbed the telescope. In the telescope, Buggy saw a large ship, no less than theirs, slowly approaching from thousands of meters away. It's strange. Why is there no sign? There is nothing except an inconspicuous-looking weakling. Buggy scratched his face, and then gave the binoculars to his most trusted chief of staff, Kabaji. Take a look. As you command. Kabaji took the telescope and took a closer look, and found that the ship in front of him really had no signs. Just like an ordinary big ship. However, this boat is ordinary but not ordinary. Because there are actually no less than 3 stone cannon firing ports on both sides of the ship, it is obvious that this is not a simple ship. Kabaji respectfully said to Buggy, Captain, according to my judgment, this ship is probably a warship. Although it looks like there is only one person, it cannot be ruled out that it is Marine in disguise. I think it is better to be careful. Buggy was stunned for a moment, then stamped the deck with his right foot, clenched his fist and said angrily, What? Marine's disguise. These bad guys dare to design this uncle like this. It's so shameless. No, I'm going to kill him. Let him know that I am not that easy to bully. After hearing this, a group of subordinates immediately started to admire him with their eyes shining. Wow, Captain Buggy actually dares to confront Marine head-on. He is really awesome and powerful. This is our great Captain Buggy. Even Marine doesn't look down on him. He is so great and I admire him so much. I knew that our Captain Buggy was destined to become One Piece. Hearing everyone's praise, Buggy immediately started to float. Don't say that. Although this is also a fact, it's better to be low-key, low-key, low-key. At this moment, Kabaji quickly approached Buggy's ear and whispered, Captain, my suggestion is not to take this risk. If we are caught by Marine, we will be finished. Don't forget, Impel Down City is known as it's a hellish city with no entrance and no exit. After hearing the words Impel Down, Buggy couldn't help but shudder. Only then did he remember Marine's terror. Even Bullet, who was so powerful back then and defeated countless strongmen, was captured, and his life and death are unknown now. What kind of waves can a mere little pirate create? Buggy, who was about to be arrogant, immediately guarded his desire to be arrogant at this moment, and said with a serious face, Young men, Marine is nothing, but because of this, we cannot take it lightly. According to this with my sixth sense, I have seen that there are at least hundreds of super warships ambushing on the opposite side. In order to capture me, this time the entire Marine headquarters was mobilized. Having said this, Buggy couldn't help but hold his forehead, shook his head, and made a helpless expression. He sighed and said, "Hey, although I am indeed very powerful and can move freely among countless Marine masters, you can't. For the safety of my most loyal subordinates, I decided not to take this risk. Let's turn around." Hearing these words, the pirate members who had admired him a moment ago all looked moved, and some even started crying. "This is our great Captain Buggy. He always considers our safety. Woohoo, you are so good, Captain. Yes, yes, we will follow such a captain to the death. It is necessary, Captain, I am committed to following you for the rest of my life. Even if I die, I will die before you. Yes, we must risk everything to protect Captain Buggy. He wants to become a one-piece man. Captain Buggy, Captain Buggy, Captain Buggy." Listening to the support and praise from his subordinates, Buggy couldn't help but float again. Buggy's face turned red, he pressed his hands with great excitement, and said, Okay, I know you all respect me and love me very much, but we'd better change the direction quickly, otherwise we will be attacked by those insidious people later. It would be bad if Marine found out." At the same time, Luang, who was observing the movement ahead, couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. It's strange, why did the Buggy pirates suddenly start changing direction? He looked at the telescope, and after observing it many times, he finally determined that Buggy's fleet had really changed direction. On the other side, the captain of the pirate group who was being hunted by the Buggy pirate group also looked confused. "Why did you retreat so suddenly? This pirate group is called the Sea Dragon Pirates. They are not well known, but their name is extremely loud. The captain's name is Abuka Sea Dragon, and he is a new member of the pirate group. He originally wanted to start from the East China Sea and slowly grow into a super pirate, but he didn't expect that he would meet the Buggy pirates not long after he grew up. As a newcomer, how could he be Buggy's opponent? He was immediately frightened and ran all the way. Unexpectedly, at the moment of danger, Buggy suddenly turned around and ran away. This inexplicable action left Hailong a little confused. Captain Hailong, we found a large ship 3 nautical miles southeast. Do you want to get closer and take a look?" At this time, a subordinate hurriedly ran to Hailong and reported. "What big ship?" Hailong, who was chased out of the shadow by Buggy, took over his subordinate's telescope and quickly looked toward the southeast. "Looking at it, I found a ship that was bigger than myself. It's strange, why aren't there any flags? Even if it's not a marine or a pirate, but a merchant ship, it usually has its own flag." Hailong was full of doubts, and then he took the telescope carefully and looked back and forth. It was only after repeated observations that he confirmed that this was just an ordinary big ship. Could it be that a nobleman from a wealthy family bought the toy? Hailong held his chin and looked at it for a long time. After thinking for a long time, he finally showed a hint of determination. "HMPH, since you're not a marine or a pirate, let's do it and starve the brave to death." After settling his mind, Hailong immediately raised his hand and said, "Attention, everyone. Now use full power and move forward toward the southeast. As you command." After receiving the captain's order, all members of the Sea Dragon Pirates turned around without saying a word. They revved up the ship's power and headed southeast without reservation. This guy is actually coming here. Seeing that the small pirate group being chased by the Buggy pirate group not only did not turn around, but instead moved quickly towards him, Luang couldn't help but look strange. "Good guy, is this takeout delivered to your door?" Seeing the pirate group getting closer and closer, Luang couldn't help but grin. Shanya and Shinolan, who were exercising, also noticed something strange. They stopped the equipment in their hands and looked into the distance with puzzled faces. As far as the eye could see, a medium-sized pirate ship was speeding toward him at an extremely fast speed. Obviously, the target of this pirate ship is me. Sea Dragon Pirates. At this moment, Shanya, who had sharp eyes, suddenly opened his mouth and called out the name of the pirate group. Shinolan said, "Is it very powerful?" Shanya crossed his arms and sneered with disdain. "Awesome. It's so awesome. It's just a new pirate group that has just emerged. The bounty of Captain Hailong is only 7 million belly, which is not even as good as the previous Hypnosis division." Shinolan nodded. "Oh, in that case, I'd better continue training." Too weak, I don't even have the desire to take action. Yamaga glanced at the approaching sea dragon pirates and continued his special training without any fluctuations. It turns out to be the rookie pirates. After hearing Shan Ya's words, Lu Ang nodded, and then with a friendly smile, he was ready to greet this distinguished guest who came to send money. Coming all the way to deliver the bounty to your doorstep, if this isn't a VIP, what is it? Soon, the sea dragon pirates arrived at Lu Ang's ship at high speed. As the three-plank bridge was built, hundreds of pirates swarmed in, screaming. Ha ha ha, it was robbed, it was robbed. Everyone on the boat, get out of here, lousy. The men stay on the left, the women on the right, and the ladyboys stand in the middle. Hey, if you are unconvinced and want to resist, please stand up quickly. Lousy's sword is already thirsty. As these people yelled, a man wearing long leather boots, purple mink, and a fluffy shawl slowly walked over. Seeing this man coming out, all the pirates gathered around respectfully. Obviously, he is the captain. Hai Long put his hands in his pockets and glanced at Lu Ang, Shan Ya, and Shinolin on the deck with his narrow eyes. Then he slowly said, "Are you three the only ones on this boat?" Lu Ang nodded, with a very friendly smile, and said, "That's right, there are only 3 of them." Hai Long glanced at Lu Ang and said, "Very good, this captain likes people who are well behaved and sensible. In that case, you 3 can jump off the ship yourself. This ship belongs to me, Hai Long." Hearing this, Shan Ya couldn't help but sneered. Hai Long clearly heard the disdain in Shan Ya's mouth, and his face immediately changed slightly, and he said angrily, "Kid, what are you laughing at?" Shan Ya glanced sideways at Hai Long and said, "You are a fool, you are such a fool, you actually delivered the head to the door. Asshole, how dare you insult our captain like this, let's see if Lousy doesn't kill you." A pirate with a sinewy face and a huge body roared, raised the big knife in his hand and slashed at Shan Ya. Facing this knife, Shan Ya remained motionless, his face still full of ridicule and contempt. The moment his knife was about to fall, an invisible wave of air suddenly flashed past. The next second, except for Hai Long, the eyes of all the pirates on the ship turned white and they fainted. Bang bang bang. With heavy and powerful landing sounds, 200 to 300 pirates all fell to the deck. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Hai Long, who was originally very arrogant, proud and arrogant, was immediately stunned. He never thought that all his men would fall down in just a moment. This was too shocking and terrifying. Please be smarter next time. Shan Ya glanced at Lu Ang, and then continued to train on his own. Phew, Shinolin couldn't help but smile when he saw this, and continued to do weight-bearing training. Hey, this captain is such a failure. He was actually ridiculed by his companions. Lu Ang scratched the back of his head helplessly, then turned his head and looked at Hai Long, who was still confused. Hey, do you want to tie it up yourself, or should I tie it up for you? Hai Long turned his head with numbness on his face and looked at Lu Ang in confusion. What? Why are you tied up? Hey, what a confused person. Lu Ang shook his head, and then quickly picked up a rope and tied Hai Long tightly. It wasn't until he was tied up that Hai Long finally understood. Without saying a word, he started howling, "Asshole, let me go quickly." Shan Ya, who was so noisy, suddenly looked murderous and said, "If you say one more word, I will chop you to death." A very simple sentence, but Hai Long was instantly excited. Who are these guys? Why are even these little kids so ferocious, and why do they have such terrifying strength? Looking at Shan Ya, Shinolin and Lu Ang, who was extremely casual at the side, Hai Long was about to cry. He never expected that the plot where he was supposed to succeed in the robbery and throw the 3 people down to feed the fish would suddenly take a 180-degree turn. This is illogical and inconsistent with the script. Why is this happening? Why are they so powerful? Who are they? Is it a marine? Or a pirate? At this moment, Hai Long's heart collapsed. Lu Ang jumped off the sea dragon pirates with an apple in one hand and a big bag on his back. With a loud bang, he fell on the deck. He had just gone to the sea dragon pirates' ship to plunder it, and the bag on his back was full of all kinds of gold and silver treasures. While biting an apple, Lu Ang asked Shinolin, who was training, "By the way, where is the nearest marine base?" Shinolin is not only a ship repairman, but also seems to have a pretty good understanding of the geography of the East China Sea. Shinolin looked at the navigation needle in his hand and said after a moment, if my guess is not wrong, you will encounter a town after driving southwest for about 3 days. The specific name seems to be Orangetown or something else. Orangetown, but the marine base there is not big, it seems to be a small station, and I don't know if it will accept the pirates with bounties on it. Lu Ang nodded. Okay, then go to that Orangetown and have a look. If it doesn't work, just change it. Hearing this, Hai Long knew what was going on no matter how stupid he was. Obviously, this is a group of bounty hunters whose purpose is to hunt pirates with a bounty on their head. At this moment, Hai Long suddenly remembered the scene where the buggy pirates suddenly left earlier, and he wanted to slap himself 3 times. No wonder the buggy pirates suddenly changed direction. They must have known the origin of this ship a long time ago. How could I be so stupid? I should have discovered something was wrong long ago. Hey, my pirate career, my pirate dream, woo-woo, I'm only in my 20s. After catching Hai Long, the takeaway that unexpectedly came to his door, the lives of Lu Ang and the others at sea began to return to peace. Just like when they captured Creek before, Lu Ang and the other 3 also allowed the Sea Dragon pirates to live a good life that was full of success but not good enough. In this regard, no one in the entire Sea Dragon pirates dared to complain. In the blink of an eye, he was knocked down by the opponent's move. He didn't even know how the opponent made the move or how to play. It was obvious that the strength of oneself and the other party were not at the same level from the beginning. After 3 days of starvation, the members of the Sea Dragon pirates gradually changed from being strong and burly at the beginning to being skinny and bones. That seems to be a warship. Early in the morning on the 3rd day, just as Lu Ang finished his meal and prepared to go to the deck for some activities, he suddenly discovered a warship appearing directly ahead. This warship is not big, but it is equally powerful. Is it such a coincidence? I just don't know if this warship can accept pirates. Lu Ang looked at the approaching warship, touched his chin, and murmured to himself. Shanya came from behind, crossed his arms and said, you'll know if you lean up and ask, but you'd better be mentally prepared. Oh, what do you mean? Lu Ang looked at Shanya with surprise. Shanya said, the marine is also a mixed bag. Not everyone is so easy to talk to. Some people are even more vicious than pirates. After saying that, he turned around and walked back and started doing warm-up exercises. This little brat knows a lot. Looking at Shanya's back, Lu Ang smiled slightly. Although this guy still looks like a stinker, the relationship with him has obviously improved a lot. After about an hour and a half, the warship finally arrived. And Lu Ang also saw a wave of upright and fully armed marines standing on the bow of the ship. At this moment, the marine in front slowly gave way to a path, and a beautiful woman with long pink hair and sunglasses walked out of the middle. The woman had a delicate face, red lips and white teeth. She was wearing a bright red double-breasted coat and a Major General marine cape. Lu Ang recognized her at just one glance. Isn't this guy Major General Tina? How could he meet her so quickly? Lu Ang was also a little surprised when he saw Tina appear. After all, this is just the beginning of the plot, and the Major Generals have already started to appear before Marine has even met him. However, this guy seems quite promising. Lu Ang held his chin, glanced at the front of Tina's breasts, and nodded slightly. Sure enough, the women in One Piece are all turbulent beings. After multiple women's appearance verification, Lu Ang finally confirmed this fact. The ship's in front of you. Where did you come from, what are your identities, and where are you going? Soon, 3 consecutive interrogations from Marine started. Lu Ang crossed his arms and grinned. Isn't that the beautiful Major General Tina in front of you? Why don't you come down and have a chat? Tina was also a little surprised when she saw that the unassuming man in front of her could recognize her at a glance. She looked at Lu Ang for a few times, then nodded and jumped down. As a user with the Threshold Fruit ability, she is extremely powerful, and she is not afraid of even some famous pirates. Not to mention the ordinary-looking man in front of me. After landing lightly on the deck, Tina glanced at the ship. As a Major General of the Marine Corps, it is her habit to obtain intelligence about her opponents through all kinds of details, large and small. Tina crossed her arms and said calmly, "Who are you?" Smelling the scent of perfume carried by the sea breeze blowing in front of him, Lu Ang smiled and said, I, Aruba Luang, come from Windmill Village, and I am currently a little bounty hunter. Bounty hunter. Tina glanced at Luang, then walked around the ship with a swaying figure like a willow, while looking at the various layouts and structures of the ship. During this period, she also noticed Shania and Shinolin, who were undergoing special training, but she only glanced at them and withdrew her gaze. After walking around, Tina glanced at Luang, exhaled and said, "You said you were a bounty hunter, do you have anything to prove it? Also, where did this ship come from? I hope you can tell me honestly." Listening to Tina's soft voice, Luang felt very happy. She is indeed the most beautiful among Marines. But beauty is one thing, and Luang is not a fool. He stared at the beautiful face of the marine flower without any haste, and said very calmly, "The evidence is very simple, just follow me to the cabin and take a look." While speaking, Luang turned around and walked towards the cabin. Tina frowned slightly and followed after hesitating for a second. "HMPH, let me see what tricks you are going to play." Then she followed Luang to the interior of the cabin, and soon she followed Luang to a spacious cabin warehouse. As soon as she entered the door, she was startled by the dense numbers of pirates inside. Who are these people?" Luang smiled and said, "There are so many fierce-looking guys, can't Major General Tina still see it? Obviously they are a group of pirates." Tina frowned. She looked at these skinny guys and then at Luang. "Why do I feel that compared to them, you are more like a bad person?" Luang. Hearing this, Luang felt bad all over. What kind of vision does this woman have? She is obviously handsome, kind and innocent, majestic and upright, okay. Luang wanted to refute, but he knew that good men don't fight with women, so he didn't bother to say anything at the moment. Anyway, the facts are before our eyes, and there is nothing more convincing than this. Did you see the guy in the middle? He is their boss. His name is Hai Long. The bounty is 7 million belly. Can you pay it with me here? Hearing this, Tina couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. "So, you want to come to me to collect the reward?" Luang frowned slightly. "Why, you can't represent the Marine headquarters." Although this Tina is quite beautiful, beauty cannot be eaten. If he wanted to take these pirates away for military glory without saying a word, he wouldn't do it. "Oh, of course I can represent it, but..." Speaking of this, Tina's face suddenly turned cold. She slowly took off her sunglasses, revealing a pair of extremely beautiful and hot big eyes. Tina looked at Luang coldly and said in an indifferent tone, "I need to confirm your true strength, because I don't believe that you captured so many pirates alone. Want a fight?" After hearing this request, Luang couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and said, "Okay, let's go up there, so as not to damage my boat." Tina nodded, and then followed Luang to the deck without saying a word. "Let me tell you first, I am a user with threshold fruit ability. No matter who it is, as long as they touch my iron prison, they will never be able to break free." As Tina spoke, she showed off her devil fruit ability, instantly extending a circle of iron prison and surrounding the entire ship. Luang already knew everything about this guy's abilities. Even without her introduction, Luang knew how to deal with him. He turned his wrist and said casually, "Okay, I know your ability, can we start now?" This guy. Seeing Luang's indifferent expression, Tina couldn't help but become a little annoyed. "Do your own reputation and abilities seem so mediocre and vulnerable? Since you despise me so much, then I will let you taste regret." Tina pouted her cherry lips and said coldly, "Don't blame me for not reminding you, if you lose, you have to follow me back to Marine headquarters for further investigation." Luang. Okay. As soon as the word, "good," came out, Tina immediately attacked without saying a word. I saw her hands exerting force, and in an instant she raised the iron prison formed in her hands and attacked Luang quickly. "Tisk, tisk, you can't touch this thing casually." Luang raised his eyebrows, stepped on the ground suddenly, and disappeared on the spot. Tina looked left and right in confusion. Strange, where did the person go? "Sister, I'm behind you." Hearing the sudden sound, Tina immediately roared, "You scoundrel!" Her reaction was extremely fast. She immediately turned around and let the iron prison sweep away at an extremely fast speed. Unexpectedly, the moment she turned around, an extremely sharp sword swept out from behind her and rested directly on the side of her neck. Luang grinned and said, "Sorry, I made a mistake, I was in front of you." On the opposite warship, a Marine colonel saw this scene and immediately roared, "Idiot, put down your sword quickly, do you know what you are doing? You are declaring war on Marine, you are dead. You are dead deal." Listening to the harsh cry, Luang couldn't help but frown slightly. He said to Tina in front of him, "Can you shut up the dog on your boat?" "Beautiful Miss Tina. I didn't expect your swordsmanship and speed to be so superb. I underestimated you." Tina reluctantly put down her clenched pink fists. She knew that she had lost, and she had lost miserably. After saying this, Tina raised her head and said to the colonel above, "Colonel Luther, don't worry, he and I just had a friendly battle, nothing happened." Seeing that Tina had given up, Luang naturally had no need to put the sword on her neck anymore and took it back without saying a word. "Now you finally believe in my strength, right?" Luang looked at the beautiful woman in front of him with a smile. Snort. Tina glanced at Luang, still a little unconvinced. "I asked my people to come down and escort those pirates away. As for the bounty, I don't have that much with me right now. If you can trust me, just keep this account in mind and come find me at the Marine branch in the East China Sea another day. I will definitely all cash it in for you." Luang touched his chin, looked at it for a moment, and then shook his head. "No, first don't believe Marine. You." Upon hearing this, Tina's chest heaved with anger. Seeing the turbulent appearance, Luang took a breath of air. He hesitated again and finally said something that shocked Tina. "But, I believe you." Tina. Later, Luang generously asked Tina's people to take away all the pirates in the cabin. Before leaving, Tina asked Luang's name again, then nodded and turned to leave. Looking at the warships gradually leaving, Shanya said disdainfully, "You actually believe Marine?" "Old God," Luang said, "I don't believe in Marine, I believe in that woman." Exonoran put her hands on her waist with an unhappy face and said, "HMPH, do you think I don't know? From the beginning to the end, you looked at that woman's breasts at least 10 times. Do you believe her? You clearly saw her." Luang. Shanya. As the Marine warship left, Luang also breathed a sigh of relief. "No matter what, at least get these guys out. Otherwise, if you continue to stay, you will die in the cabin sooner or later. Then you will really be doomed." Although Tina is a little arrogant woman, it is precisely because of this arrogance that Luang believes that she will not be able to default on this debt. Arrogant women often have strong self-esteem. She can't stand the self-blame of her conscience and the criticism from the outside world, so Luang is still sure to get this debt back. Anyway, it was 7 million Baileys delivered to my door. Even if it was really gone, it wouldn't be that painful. It didn't take long for Luang and the others to see land. A beautiful town gradually appeared in front of their eyes. This is Orange Town. After more than a month of long journey, I was indeed a little tired, so I just took this opportunity to go ashore for some fun. After the ship docked, Luang happily paid the parking fee for half a month, and then took Shanya and Shinolan towards the town. Orange Town, as its name suggests, is a town famous for growing oranges. In this small town, every household makes a living by growing oranges. Everyone is also extremely hardworking and diligent, and through the hard work of their hands, they have lived a pretty well-off life. It happened to be the orange harvest season. After entering the town, Luang and the three of them saw farmers passing by with truckloads of oranges from time to time. Looking at the cheerful expressions on these people's faces, I know that this year's orange harvest must be good. "You two wait here, I'll go to the shop opposite and buy some oranges." Smelling the faint scent of orange, Luang, who was a little thirsty, ran over happily without waiting for Shanya and the two to agree. Shanya bit a grass stem, crossed his arms and said with some disdain, "You haven't noticed, this captain seems a bit unreliable." Shinolan nodded. "Yeah." But soon, Shinolan shook his head again. She gently touched her hot lower lip with her index finger and muttered, "That's not true. Whenever he encounters danger, he will be the first to appear in front of him. I think he is particularly handsome at this time." After hearing Shinolan's words, Shanya couldn't help but fell silent. Although I was very unconvinced from the beginning, Luang had no reputation and no background. But he had to admit that this guy who looked extremely lazy and even occasionally careless could still be extremely reliable at times. For example, when Wright appeared for the first time and let a seagull attack him. For example, when Zhang Gao's silver ring appeared from behind him. For example, when the pirate members of Sea Dragon swarmed in and attacked them. Whenever the two of them might face a crisis, Luang would always appear immediately and stop them. Even now, as long as Luang is around, he will subconsciously be wary of the surrounding environment. This kind of habit was not possible before. The reason why he slowly and subconsciously appeared in this state was obviously because Luang was used to it. It was precisely because of the presence of this unreliable captain that he let down his guard and relaxed his vigilance. Anyway, as long as Luang is here, all dangers and crises will be solved. Soon, Luang walked back quickly with brisk steps, eating oranges. New, 1 bag per person. Without saying a word, he handed the 2 bags of oranges that had already been divided to Shanya and Shinolin one by one. Luang said, "Let's go shopping together and see if there is anything delicious here." Shanya, "Speaking of which, can't you be a little more ambitious?" "Ah, what are you pursuing?" Luang stuffed a piece of orange into his mouth and looked at Shanya doubtfully. Shanya glanced sideways at Luang. "What else can you pursue? You always think about eating wherever you go. Can you get something a little high-end?" Luang, poof. Seeing Luang's speechless look, Shinolin couldn't help covering her mouth and snickering. Complaints are complaints, but Luang has no temper at all towards Shanya. This guy's temper is exactly the same as when he was a child, and he is also very stinky. Not afraid of the sky or the earth, Lousy always looks like the best in the world. It wasn't until I was beaten up by society when I grew up that I realized that a strong temper does not mean a strong ability. In addition, Shanya is now much better than when we first boarded the ship. Although he would often argue with him, his words and deeds no longer had the sharp edge he had at the beginning. On the contrary, it was more like a bickering between two buddies. Instead of making Luang feel uncomfortable, he felt a different kind of fun. After walking for about 10 minutes, Luang suddenly saw farmers in the distance, who seemed to have encountered something. They all raised their hoes, brooms and other tools in their hands, and rushed towards the other side of the village menacingly. Past. Luang's expression changed. "It seems something happened, go and have a look." Shanya and Shinolin looked at each other and followed without saying a word. Outside the town, an old man wearing a striped plaid shirt angrily shouted at a group of pirates, "If you have the ability, beat the old man to death, otherwise you will never step foot into this town." "Ha ha ha, you old fool, you actually dare to stop me from robbing me. Since you want to die, don't blame me, Captain Buggy, for being ruthless." With an evil laugh, Buggy directly raised the lit match and slowly approached the cannon beside him. Obviously, he was planning to use this cannon to bombard the old man. At this time, countless villagers gathered with various weapons in hand. Seeing many pirates standing at the entrance of the town, everyone was shocked, angry and scared. There are so many people who are not afraid of death. Since they are here, let's spare your lives. With a ferocious smile, Buggy lit the match and moved towards the core of the gun without saying a word. The 3 Luangs who just arrived happened to see this scene. This guy. Seeing Buggy actually pointing the cannon at civilians, Luang's eyes flashed with chills. "Ha ha, go to hell." Buggy laughed loudly and lit the cannon instantly. Boom. There was a loud noise and a scream suddenly echoed through the Buggy pirates. Seeing a large group of pirate group members being blown away, Buggy was shocked, rubbed his face and screamed. "Oh my god, what's going on?" He discovered that the cannon originally aimed at the villagers had turned towards his pirate group at some point, and killed hundreds of people in an instant. Swordsman Kabaji trembled, and with scars all over his body, he raised his head with difficulty. "Buggy, Captain, is that man?" He raised his finger with difficulty and pointed at Luang, who was standing behind Buggy. "What?" Buggy was stunned for a moment, then turned around and took a look. At this glance, a pair of eyes popped out. "What the hell, when did you appear behind me?" Luang turned his wrist and grinned. "This is what happened just now." Buggy suddenly took several steps back and looked at Luang with a mixture of shock and anger. How on earth did you do that?" "This cannon." Luang glanced at the cannon that he had turned in an instant, slowly raised his head, looked at Buggy and smiled. "Just grab it and turn it, it's that simple. You're going to pay for what you did." After hearing Luang's personal admission, Buggy jumped in anger. Without saying a word, he suddenly raised his foot, and a black ammunition popped out from the sole of his foot. Hey, stupid guy, you will be blown to pieces by my buggy bomb. With a sinister smile, Buggy quickly stepped back more than 10 meters, and then watched with anticipation as his specially made buggy bullets quickly hit Lu Wang. Is this what it is? Lu Wang showed a smile. He has seen this buggy bomb many times in the plot of One Piece. Its power is indeed extraordinary, just like a miniature version of the atomic bomb. Unfortunately, Buggy's luck has never been very good, and this special buggy bomb has never been successful. This time, after meeting him, there is certainly no exception. Lu Wang, who had already mastered physical skills, swayed and rolled up buggy bullets with the corner of his clothes. In a very brief moment, he shook slightly and swept the buggy bullet towards Buggy again. Buggy, who was grinning evilly, only felt a gust of wind coming, and then he saw the buggy bullet that he had shot earlier heading towards his face at an unpredictable speed. How come my buggy bullets are flying back? Oh no! Along with a shocking scream, a deafening explosion also sounded. Everyone was stunned as they watched Buggy's whole body being blown up into the sky like a meteor by the terrifying impact of Buggy's bullet. Captain Buggy, hurry up and chase him. He is a devil fruit user and cannot touch the sea water. Please remember, we will come back. With a series of harsh words, the members of the Buggy Pirates quickly ran back towards their big ship. The disabled members were also dragged back together, and disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving no one behind. After seeing the Buggy Pirate ship leave quickly, everyone in Orange Town suddenly came to their senses, and then looked at Lu Wang with gratitude. Sir, oh, no, this hero, thank you for saving us. You are our great hero in Orange Town. Please accept the old man's respect. The old man, who was not afraid of death, just knelt down in front of Lu Wang without saying a word. Seeing this scene, Lu Wang's expression changed slightly and he immediately supported the old man. Wait a minute, uncle, don't kneel down, you must not kneel down, I can't bear this gift. In Lu Wang's hometown, there is an unwritten custom. That is, the elders cannot kneel down to the younger generation under any circumstances. In this case, the younger generation will lose his life. Even if this is the world of One Piece, Lu Wang doesn't dare to let this uncle kneel down for him. It was originally a good thing, but if you kneel down like this, my life will be shortened. Isn't that the end of the world? No, you almost saved the lives of our entire village. This kneeling is a must. The old man insisted on kneeling while talking, which made Lu Wang sweat profusely. Fighting pirates was not as strenuous as it is now. He thought for a while and finally said, Old man, if you insist on thanking me, then when we are about to board the ship, give us some local specialties, local flavor. I am personally more interested in this food. Do you want something to eat? Hearing this, the old man couldn't help but be slightly startled. Then he said with excitement on his face, no problem, I'll take care of the food for you for a year. Having said this, the old man immediately said to all the villagers, this great hero has defeated the pirates. Now he only needs us to give him some food as a thank you gift. Do you think this is okay? Okay, it must be done, this is so kind and kind. Yes, you must give it. What does such a small thing mean? I will send you my 2 little piglets later. I'll also give you my old hen that lays eggs, and by the way, I'll give you 100 of the most nutritious free-range eggs. And me, and I'll give you an orange tree. Hearing the enthusiastic words from everyone, Lu Wang felt a little embarrassed. Shanya glanced at Lu Wang and said calmly, nothing to be embarrassed about. Without you, they would have all been killed by pirates. Lu Wang looked at Shanya speechlessly and said, you guy, can you stop being so lucid in the world? Hearing this, Shanya couldn't help but lower his head. He murmured to himself, if you had seen the pirates slaughtering their families with your own eyes, you would probably be more awake than me. Lu Wang's eyes widened, clearly hearing something. What massacre? Shanya glanced at Lu Wang and walked aside silently. Shinolin, who was worried about Shanya, quickly followed after seeing this. Because the villagers were too enthusiastic and kept strongly inviting Lu Wang to be a guest, Lu Wang resisted for a long time before reluctantly getting away. Although Buggy had been driven away, Lu Wang, who was worried about Shanya and the two, quickly caught up with him. By a crystal clear river, Shanya was sitting on the pebbled bank, silently throwing stones into the water. Luang came over, and when he was about to speak, Shinolin shushed him. Luang knew that Shanya must have remembered the unpleasant past, so he didn't say anything at the moment and sat down directly next to him. Although he is already in his 20s and has experienced some things, Luang does not know how to comfort people and can only accompany his little friend silently. In this way, the three of them sat from afternoon to evening, and from evening to nightfall. When an uncontrollable gurgling sound came from Luang's stomach, Shanya couldn't help but turn his head in the darkness. He looked at Luang's belly with disdain and said slowly, "Will your belly starve to death if you don't eat?" Hearing this, Luang couldn't help but grin. Obviously, this little friend has recovered. I accidentally guessed it, so my most awesome and powerful chef brother, can you make me something delicious to fill my stomach? Humph, get back to the boat. Shanya replied coldly, and then walked quickly forward with his hands behind his back. No one noticed that at this moment, there was a trace of tears in the corners of his eyes. Thank you for staying with me. He raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said these words in the most inaudible voice. Shanya returned to the ship and soon showed off his perfect and invincible cooking skills again. In less than half an hour, more than a dozen dishes were prepared. Seeing the table full of super delicacies that were full of color, fragrance, and flavor, Luang couldn't help but pounce on them. If Shanya hadn't stopped him in the end and told him to wash his hands quickly, Luang would have taken advantage of it. Come and drink to us for driving away the pirates. Luang raised the quilt filled with red wine and Shanya, and Shinolin touched a glass directly. After toasting, the three of them started to make dinner. I don't know if it was influenced by Luang. Now not only Luang himself, but also Shanya is eating particularly wildly. Only Shinolin still maintains the image of a lady, but every time she sees the two of them eating so wildly, she sometimes has the urge to join in. No, I'm a girl, I can't be so rude, no, absolutely not. The cultivation she came from her native family finally forcibly suppressed the trace of wildness she wanted to release. An hour later, the delicious meal was finally wiped out by three people. After finishing his meal, Luang touched his belly and burped with satisfaction. It's really good, it's just like going to a restaurant every day. This chef is really worth hiring. He looked at Shanya, who was clearing away the dishes with a smile, and consciously stretched out his hand to join the cleaning team. Shinolin, who had just taken out a few dishes and chopsticks and went to the kitchen, was stunned for a moment when he saw this scene, and then continued to help with a gentle expression. In the silent action of cleaning up after the meal, a different kind of warmth also arises. It seems to be starting to feel like home here. Early the next morning, Luang was woken up by knocks on the door. When he walked out of the cabin and opened the wooden door leading to the deck, he was immediately stunned by the scene outside the door. I saw a group of villagers from Orange Town showing joy, and then they brought in chickens, ducks, fish, rabbits, firewood, rice, oil, salt and other food and daily necessities. Before he could react, dozens of villagers carrying various local products rushed into the entire cabin. Hurry up, be quick with your hands and feet, don't delay the great hero's time to go to sea. Listening to this familiar voice, Luang walked out quickly. Then he saw the old man he rescued yesterday standing on the deck, constantly directing the villagers to deliver goods. Luang's expression moved slightly and he immediately came over. Ahem, uncle, that's enough. I don't want so many things. It's really enough. What he did yesterday was just following the trend. It was not that he was particularly enthusiastic or chivalrous, but that he simply couldn't stand it. Luang claimed that he was not a benevolent and virtuous person, but just a prodigal son who followed his own desires. If you don't like it, take action. If you don't like it, show it, that's all. It has nothing to do with benevolence, justice and morality. Therefore, he was still a little embarrassed about the old man trying so hard to repay him. After all, he didn't come here for this so-called reward in the first place. The old man is Budal, the mayor of Orange Town. He has a bad temper and a tough temper, but at the same time he is also an extremely protective person. As the mayor of Orange Town, he has always been particularly gentle to the villagers. But when it comes to outsider bandits who are not good for the town, he behaves like a parent, never giving in. Because of his hard work, Many young pirates retreated when they found it difficult to chew, and Orangetown has maintained peace for many years. It's a pity that no matter how tough he is still useless in front of a relatively powerful pirate like Buggy. If Luang hadn't appeared, Orangetown would have been completely destroyed. Therefore, he was extremely grateful to Luang. Because he knew that without Luang, today's Orangetown would never be able to be saved. Hey, uncle, that's enough. There are only 3 of us, we can't eat that much. Seeing that the villagers were still delivering various daily necessities and food to the cabin, Luang was helpless. Budal couldn't help laughing after hearing this. It's okay, this is just a little thought from the big guy, you don't need to take it to heart. In this way, Luang watched helplessly as the villagers filled up the 2 warehouses in his boat little by little. Budal said, by the way, in order to celebrate the victory of defeating the pirates, please come to our bonfire party tonight. Luang. At this time, Shan Ya's voice suddenly came from behind him. Go, I also want to see what the bonfire party is like. I heard it's quite fun. Shinolin also walked out of the cabin with a smile and said, that's right, it's not easy to get off the boat, I have to spend 2 more days to play. Seeing that both partners had said this, Luang had no choice but to nod in agreement. Luang didn't notice that in the town about 300 meters away from him and others, a girl was observing with a telescope. In the telescope, she saw a large ship. On the big ship, there was an ordinary-looking man wearing a black t-shirt and leather pants chatting with the Mayor Budal. Hey, it looks ordinary. Is this the guy who killed Buggy? Nami tapped his forehead with his finger, and his excited eyes kept rolling. This guy is so strong, maybe I can convince him to take me back to my hometown, and use his power to deal with the evil dragon. Maybe it's not impossible. Thinking of the consequences after Kokoja village was occupied by the evil dragon, Nami couldn't help but tremble all over. Just because of the appearance of that evil dragon, his hometown became a colony of fishmen. In order to pay the monthly life-saving money, everyone, even children, have to work hard to make money and collect money. It is simply worse than death. Nami gritted his teeth and said firmly, yes, just do it. After filling up the cabin, there was no more room to put it, and a group of residents queuing up behind to deliver food couldn't help but feel disappointed. Hey, I also have some good home-brewed wine. What should I do? I want to give it to the hero to taste. Don't mention it, I'm more annoyed than you. As for the old cow I just brought from my parents' home, my grandma told me 1,000 times that it must be given to the hero. If he doesn't accept it, he will come back and break my dog legs. Ah, hey. There is also my little white sheep. I also want to give him a heroic brother so that he can drink fresh goat's milk every day. Now I want to take it home again. Hearing the enthusiastic expressions of everyone and the disappointment on their faces after hearing that they could not deliver the gift, Luang couldn't help but be moved. Although it is the world of One Piece, it is still a common people of flesh and blood who know how to be grateful. After repeatedly confirming that it could not be sent, everyone in Orangetown shook their heads and walked back with regret on their faces. But before going back, they came up one by one to shake hands with Luang and send their most sincere thanks. Hero, you must come to my house as a guest. I will put a table of good wine for you. We will not go home until we get drunk, ha ha ha. Brother Hero, I have the white rabbit toffee that I have been saving for a long time. I will give it to you. I hope you will be happy every day. Sir Hero, come back and sit at my house. I will kill a wild boar for you and let you try our unique wild boar feast in Orangetown. In response, Luang naturally nodded and reluctantly agreed one by one. These guys were so enthusiastic that he couldn't find a reason to refuse, so he had to agree first. Shanya shook his head, spread his hands and said, at this pace, you will have to stay here for at least 2 months before leaving. Shinolin smiled and said, then stay. I think Orangetown is pretty good too. It has good mountains and rivers, good scenery, and the key people are also very good. Looking at the residents of Orangetown who had finally been sent away, Luang smiled bitterly and said, what can we do? We can't leave without saying goodbye. Shanya nodded. This is a good idea. Luang rolled his eyes at this guy and said, your suggestion is good. You don't need to suggest it again next time. Shanya. Seeing the 2 of them starting to bicker again, Shinolin couldn't help laughing. Glancing at the orange town not far away, Luang squeezed Shanya's shoulder and said, "Let's go and stroll around the town together. I'll also stop by to see if there are any suitable weapons. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."